as you're thinking about lightening your load, why not go to the edge? One night, I went out with nothing. And as I thought, but did not know, that was not optimal.
Were you naked?
Yeah.
You were naked?
Sure. That's why it was at night. It was on the Colorado Trail.
I don't know if I believe you. Did you have shoes on?
No. I was naked.
Welcome to Backpacker Radio, presented by The Truck, brought to you by LMNT. I am your co-host, Zach Badger Davis. Sitting to my right is...
Hi, I'm Juliana Chauncey, a.k.a. Chaunce.
Welcome to February.
Wow.
We did it.
That marks the full lapse of the 7th year. We are in the 8th year.
We are in year 8, yes. What's your feel on February? I feel like this is... I'm always so forward-looking. Mm-hmm. I tend to be anxious, which is the forward-looking mental health disorder, that if I think it was more present, I would be depressed because February is just objectively the worst month. But we've already got December and January in the rearview mirror. I'm feeling a little bit optimistic about being here.
Yeah, I think February is a filler month. It is short, which everyone knows, sometimes longer than other times. But for the most time, short. No, it's like the 20s and the 4s, like at the leaps. Right. Yeah, so February feels like a filler month. There's no, I mean, isn't the Super Bowl in February?
Yeah.
So there's that. That's exciting. Valentine's Day, Galentine's Day. That's something.
Super Bowl is this Sunday. Who are you excited to see?
If the world is kind, the Bills are there.
Yeah.
And if the world is kind and the Bills are there, I am going to Louisiana.
Yeah. Well, I can say,
I'm going to go tailgate
are you gonna go?
Outside of it. I'm definitely going to go tailgate somewhere.
Yeah.
We've been talking about flying there to tailgate if that were to happen. In my dream world, someone would be selling tickets for a reasonable price, and I would go.
Hey,
and I would
abuse our reach as much as you can.
I would
see if you can get a favor ticket here.
I would consider anything in the realm of like the $1,000 Taylor Swift tickets.
Yeah.
To be reasonable. And I also didn't go to Taylor Swift, and I really wanted to, and I didn't do it
because saved and invested that money.
I wasn't a big enough fan to know that there was like a pre-order thing, so I missed that, and then all that was left were the super expensive tickets, and I just couldn't bring myself to do it. So girl math says, had I gone to Taylor Swift, that money would already be gone, so I can apply that money to this ticket, and that's free money. Yeah. Where the money will come from, that's a tomorrow problem. But if the Bills are going, God, I would love to go. If anyone here just like happens to work at that stadium and happens to have access to the ticket machine and happens to want to email me, julianachauncey@gmail.com, please.
You're definitely going to get some weird emails after doing that. But
don't me weird things.
That's the risk you got to take in a desperate plea for tickets.
I'll risk it.
Yeah. But no, I would encourage you to go to the Super Bowl site. I went back to Chicago when the Cubs were in the World Series. Didn't even attempt to go to any of the games. Just wanted to be part of the overall ecosystem atmosphere. And it was incredible. It was amazing. Like being in Chicago when they won Game 7 is one of the top memories of my entire life.
What's hard about it is it could like A, be like the most heartbreaking trip of my life if we go to the Super Bowl and don't win.
That's the risk reward, baby.
But B, here's the thing that I can't wrap my head around.
Can't wait for this to age so poorly when they definitely lose.
Yeah, if we lose to the Ravens next week. Here's what would really just kill me is if I didn't go because I was like, oh, the tickets are too expensive. I, don't want to sacrifice other things to make it work. It doesn't make sense. It's not sensible. Like the rational side of me, if I were to do that and they were to win and I were to go through the rest of my entire life saying that I could have gone to the Bills for a Super Bowl win and I chose not to.
Yeah.
How do you go on?
Yeah. No, that's tough. That's tough to come back from.
So I think I would have to go. And that's problematic because I checked the other night, tickets are like $4,000 each, and I don't have that for that.
That's exorbitant.
But hey, I hear feet pick.
You can do some trades.
I'm excited now. You got me excited.
Yeah.
Feet pick sell for a lot.
Someone's gonna do a counterfeit ticket, and then
I'll make a foot calendar. I'll send it. What better reason to open up an OnlyFans? I don't know. Yeah. Desperate times call for desperate measures.
Sure.
And I'm willing to,
Let's see
do a moderate amount.
Let's see how this one ages.
I hope we get there.
As people have already discerned.
Guys, don't send me anything mean or making fun of the Bills not making it if they're not there right now, because I'm going to be sad enough.
Yeah.
Let's just all manifest together and hope that this ages well, because I need this.
The Bills have a pretty good record in the Super Bowl, right?
What?
Huh?
Stop it. Move on to your next bullet point.
Okay, yeah.
February is a filler month, apart from potentially the best month of my life.
Yeah, there you go. All right, a few reminders before we get to today's awesome interview. We have a live podcast coming up in Austin. Mm-hmm. This is going down at Soundspace at Captain Quack's in Austin, Texas, as I mentioned, on April 17th. Doors for this show are at 5:30. We expect this one to sell out. The early interest in this has been very strong. Obviously, we haven't been to that neck of the Southwest, so if you have any interest in going, we highly encourage you to get your tickets now. Mm-hmm. And we have a super secret special guest that especially OG backpackers, I think, will be very pleased about this one.
Ooh, okay, yeah. I was going to continue the trend of doing a hint each time.
I think OG is pretty good.
Yeah.
What was the hint last time?
The last time the hint was that they've already been requested.
Right.
And I'm not saying where or if it was through the forum or how, but the name has come up several times. OG Backpackers is a good one. I'll table my hint for the next week then.
Okay, sounds good. Next item up is, if you guys enjoy this podcast and you want to support the show, head on over to our Patreon. You can get all of our episodes ad-free. So, if you want to skip past the ads, you want to shave a few minutes off the podcast, you can do so. Patreon.com/backpackerradio. We're still experimenting with exclusive content we can do for you guys. Mm-hmm. Toyed with the idea of maybe doing some segments while hiking.
Yep. We toy with a lot of ideas.
We toy more than we execute.
Yeah, the toying is not the part that needs to be worked on.
Yeah.
It's the execution.
For sure. But ad-free is the thing that we're leaning on for sure.
Yes.
And whatever else happens is a added bonus. And as I mentioned in previous episodes, if there's something in particular that you want, hit us up and we are happy to oblige. Mm-hmm. Lastly, but not leastly, is if you're taking on a long-distance trek this year and you want your journey featured on a large, awesome, amazing platform, head on to the link in the show notes to apply to be a trek blogger. This year's program, thanks to Jess Stone, who we're going to get on the podcast here in the coming weeks, is going to be better than ever. We have a mentorship program. There's going to be discounts with some of our favorite gear brands. We're going to send mail drops to some of our standout contributors and much, much more. So if that sounds of interest, again, head to the link in the show notes. Okay, let's get right to our interview today with Coup. We are joined by today's guest, Demetri Coupounas. From 1998 to 2019, Demetri Coupounas helped radically reduce the loads wilderness adventurers carry through two companies he founded, GoLite and MyTrail. The previous decade, he helped balance the budget for the United States federal government, achieving a surplus for 4 years as the bipartisan Concord Coalition's policy director and architect of its zero deficit plan. He's a graduate of Princeton University, Harvard Business School, and Harvard's John F. Kennedy School of Government, and an alumnus of the Reagan and Bush 41 administrations. Coup, as his friends call him, was the first person to ever thru-hike the 486-mile-long Colorado Trail unsupported, carrying 21 days of food and gear on his back from the start, the longest-known unsupported hike in history at that time. His resting pulse is 36. Is that true?
Yep.
Do you have a heart rate monitor? We can verify that. That's because I have always been known as like the lowest heart rate guy possible.
I'm not resting right now.
Oh, too excited. What would you estimate your heart rate's at currently?
Low 40s.
Okay, that's
wow.
I run 45 to 50 typically. 36 is crazy.
Yep.
That's pretty good. Okay, my first question for you: what are you more passionate about, politics or backpacking?
Depends on which I'm doing at the time. When I'm watching the news while cooking dinner, politics. While I am in the tub and in between Seinfeld episodes or NFL football games in the playoffs, and I go to YouTube, I gravitate towards something backpacking and mountaineering oriented. I absolutely love both things. I love a cappella singing that I was deep into when I was in college. There's a lot of different things that I've really, really, dove deep into. And when I'm doing them, I'm all in. And when it's over, we move on. And we can come back and pick it up at any time. But I do my utmost to live in such a way that I don't have regrets that I left anything on the table, and I don't miss stuff. I'm just glad that I did it, and I'm glad that I shared the time with the people that I did it with. And so couldn't choose between those two or several other things.
What are your favorite backpacking YouTube channels to watch in the tub?
You know, oddly, it's not so much channels that I get drawn to, but specific gear reviews of things I might want to use on upcoming trips that I have planned. And I already know more about a couple of different tents, for instance, than anybody on earth but the people that design them. And yet, I really enjoy watching a video by somebody who has no idea what they're talking about, who's just unpackaging it for the first time and giving their commentary.
Are you
and
ripping
who knows
them?
why?
Are you ripping them apart in the comments?
No, I don't comment on that on those things at all. I just find it interesting.
Okay.
I like seeing well-designed products pitched and displayed and used. Who knows what it is that attracts me to that, but I like it.
Okay. Cool.
Obviously, we want to talk a ton about backpacking, GoLite, MyTrail Company, etc. I'm a little bit curious about the political thing. How did you get into politics?
Well, I graduated in 1988, which was an election year, and I majored in politics, and I almost wrote a senior thesis. So I went to Princeton University, and the reason I went to Princeton, among other things, I had amazing a cappella sing groups. It was first rate at the 4 different majors that I thought I might want to get into. But the thing that drew me more than anything is that Princeton had a requirement to write a thesis. And I really, really wanted to write a book in college. And I was pretty darn sure that I would not write one if I wasn't required to. I would find my way to extracurriculars and drinking some beer instead. So I went to a place that made you write a book. And when it was time to write the book, after going through well over 100 different topics, I finally came across one that really, really blew my mind with how important it was and how well suited I was to tackling it. And that was how to balance a budget in the United States. And there was a lot from Dwight Eisenhower is my favorite president. And there was a lot from my study of Eisenhower and the fact that he had balanced the budget multiple times intentionally rather than the one time that it was balanced by accident in the Johnson administration. And there was so much that indicated that this was really a math and politics problem, not an economics problem. The economics was pretty straightforward and had been written by dozens and dozens of Nobel laureates. And all that was crunched. But in 10th grade, I won a worldwide math prize exam, which kind of got my attention, let alone teachers and friends' attention. It's like, okay, so I'm good at this. And I was also president of my high school, and it wasn't president of the class, it was president of the school because the faculty voted too, and the responsibilities were beyond what's normal. And so really I thought of myself as a really good singer, a really mediocre athlete, and a kid that was fantastic at math and seemed to know his way around solving political problems, at least on a small level. And then I stumbled across, we're borrowing hundreds of billions of dollars a year, and it's not a good thing to do. It's absolutely, positively perverse for the long-term success and strength of this society. And all the incentive structures are such that nobody's tackling this. There are different people sounding off on this in a kind of rolling wave over the decades, but nobody since Eisenhower just frickin' said, I'm taking care of this, and had the clout to do it and make it stick and say, no, we're not balancing the budget over 10 years. We're balancing the budget this year. And I know how to do it, and I'm doing it. And so it struck me that there was this tremendous opportunity to use my unique combination of skills and aptitudes and get with the right few other people to find the levers and make a huge, huge change. So have either of you ever come across the Foundation series by Isaac Asimov?
No.
Okay. Asimov wrote more than anybody. He's published more than 500 books. Only person published in all 10 classifications of the Dewey Decimal System.
Wow.
And first and foremost, he was a science fiction writer. And his most important work was the Foundation series, which was originally a trilogy in the early 50s, Foundation, Empire, Second Foundation. And later it grew to many, many books and linked up to other series of his. He wrote I, Robot and Fantastic Voyage, among other things that you would definitely, you know his work. Everybody knows his work. Not everybody knows him. And in Foundation, there was this concept that there was this galactic civilization that was definitely going to collapse. And this guy, Harry Seldon, had figured it out. He was the leader of a whole band of psychohistorians who were mathematicians and psychologists. And because they were dealing with a galactic empire, the numbers were so large that you could apply statistics and predict the future in ways that you can't when things are as small scale, quote unquote, as a 7 billion person society on planet Earth. And long story short, in the Foundation series, it was clear that the psychohistorians figured out that the galactic empire was going to collapse. There's going to be total chaos, 25,000 years of shitstorm, and then a new empire would arise and things would be better. And they said, how can we get to these critical little junctures, find and get to the key places where we can bend history such that we can not stop the thing from collapsing, because we can't do that. But they figured out how to get the new order up and running in 1,000 years instead of 25,000 years. And that's what the whole series is about. And a lot of different people, as senior as, say, Alan Greenspan, who was back then head of the Federal Reserve, to as junior as me, having a worm's eye view of government in the Reagan administration as Farm Programs Correspondence Processing Unit intern in the Farmer Home Administration of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Boy, was that, couldn't get further away from Fed Reserve Chairman, right? But we're both influenced by the same guy. Harry Seldon, a fictional character, psychohistorian head in Isaac Asimov's universe. And the whole notion that, what on earth is the thing that has these levers like the psychohistorians had in our own society. And for a lot of economists, they're like, it's economics. That's why some of the leading economists became economists. I came at this same thing, but a little different way. Same influences, but I said, no, this is not an economic problem. This is a math problem and a politics problem that has to be tackled at the same time, the same way, through two different approaches that need to meet. And it's like an offense, defense in football. It's complementary operation. And then back to graduating in '88, I was like, okay, well, 1 out of 4 chance I'm graduating election year. Time to do something about this. So I wrote this book called Voodoo Political Economy, The Effects, Causes, and Cures of Our Massive Federal Budget Deficits and National Debt. And then I found the right lever for me to get into politics quickly was not to work on a presidential campaign, but really to focus on Dawkins for Senate in New Jersey, because on a Senate campaign, a young person that's an insomniac and not in a relationship at the time can go pretty far pretty fast. And every vote for Dawkins was a vote for Bush anyway. And I didn't want to vote. I didn't want to work on the national campaign because I was personal friends with Mike Dukakis, and so, kind of on the side, my mom and I had this little organization with two people called Greek Friends of Dukakis from Brookline for Bush. But that was the vehicle to get into politics real fast and then get down to the inaugural committee to basically plan, the opening celebration party of the Bush administration, the American Bicentennial Presidential Inaugural Committee. And it was pretty easy to move up pretty fast in that because there's all kinds of people that go work on stuff like that with all kinds of obvious selfish motives. And it was very obvious to a lot of people very early on. It's like, oh, what the hell is this guy, all about, who's here at 10:30 at night working for free, answering the phones? He seems to only be here because he's obsessed with balancing the budget of the United States government and won't shut the fuck up about it. And one night, the number 2 person at the inauguration was asked about me from the top person at the inaugural committee and said, has he got a brain? And he's like, Princeton guy. And and the next thing I knew, I was right hand to the guy running the inaugural, who then became an assistant to the president, and lots of doors opened up. And all of the next several years, it was really a decade-long effort to get the budget balanced, was every bit as fascinating and rewarding personally and professionally as I could possibly imagine, though ultimately, like GoLite, it could be defined as phenomenally successful or unsuccessful, depending on where your focus is. To almost everybody that looked from the outside, I told people flat out, I'm going to Washington to balance the budget of the United States government. You can either help or watch. That's the kind of little arrogant prick that I was. And so to them, like, box checked, holy crap, look what you can do in Washington if you just set your mind to it. But in truth, I thought it was absolutely vital to get a balanced budget amendment to the United States Constitution. And I not only foresaw, but wrote in my thesis about how without that, ultimately it would get unbalanced again because all the incentives were wrong and all the perversions would take over, and we would just be a speed bump if we didn't get that. And my efforts were, for that, fell one vote short. Bob Torselli, New Jersey, son of a bitch. And but we fixed his ass 5.5 years later. And so anyway.
Yeah, fascinating. I don't want to do too much politics because obviously there's so much to talk about. But
let's call that box checked.
Yeah, well, I do have to ask about how fucked are we currently, and what's your take on DOGE?
Well, we are in bad shape fiscally. Really, 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 really bad shape. It's in a lot of ways, it's as bad as you could possibly imagine. What has been so much better for decades than I and all the other deficit hawks way back when thought is compared to what? There hadn't been a flight from the dollar because what are you going to fly to? And that's really bought time. And what have we done with that time? Not a goddamn thing. We just dig the hole deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. But there is no huge flood coming into our hole from right next door like we thought there would be. But we keep digging. And we keep digging. And we're not going to stop digging till we finally someday find out what the consequences are. And they might be a lot worse than what we predicted decades ago because the hole is so much deeper. There's still no flight to to, the yuan or anything else. But we're closing in on having a higher debt to GDP ratio than we had coming out of World War II, which makes no sense whatsoever. Now, DOGE, my thoughts are somewhat different, I think, than most people would assume.
Are you going to tell us it's going to go to the moon?
So here's the thing.
We're not talking about Dogecoin, John.
Yeah. Are you not?
No.
I don't know what we're talking about.
So DOGE is the...
Dumb it down for me, please.
It's the incoming Trump administration's take on fiscal responsibility.
Interesting.
The first Trump administration ran up tons of new debt, much like several administrations before, much like the administration afterwards. In the grand scheme of things, we have this enormous conflict, obviously, between Democrats and Republicans, conservatives and liberals in so many different respects, and yet they are marvelously cooperative in borrowing trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars year after year, decade after decade, in war, in peace, in recession, in good economic times. It's really diabolical. You might think that there's a fix-in and that we're all being played for fools. I've seen it too up close and personal to believe, as I once did, that it's intentional. No, they're just a bunch of people putting their pants on one leg at a time in the morning, just like we do, and trying to get through their damn day. Anyway, DOGE. They're talking about saving $1 trillion a year. And most people who know all about the budget and know about the politics would reflexively say, how pie in the sky, how naive, don't know what you're doing. Obviously, this is either you have no idea what you're doing, or this is all theater. I don't look at it that way. I look at it as I try and be as empathetic to the characters involved as humanly possible. And just to pick the main one, Elon Musk, he and I couldn't possibly be any more different on a whole lot of parameters. Him coming to this work as the richest person on the planet in his, I think, 50s. Me coming to this work barely out of my teens from college. And yet, from that starting point, just having the audacity to just say, damn it, we're gonna try and do this. We're gonna take it on. And then we'll figure it out over time. You have to start there. Now, what the next few steps are tells you everything. Is this somebody who's really committed to this work and will get with all the right people who've been working on this for decades and know what they're doing and roll up the sleeves and fight the battles and spend the capital and talk the president and talk both members of the House and Senate into what they need to do to make a transformational bargain and solution, or whether ultimately, however pure the motives might or might not have been coming in, never mind. Half a year from now, as you see how hard it is and how complex it is, we'll see.
Okay.
My brain hurts.
Yeah, let's talk backpacking. So yeah, tell us. We learned a lot about your educational background and your work with politics. I'm curious, at what point does backpacking get sprinkled into your
So
life?
backpacking's the same shit. It's just that the spreadsheets running a business like GoLite say dollars. And they look just like the spreadsheets that I used to work with in government, except those said, in parentheses at the top of the page, said dollars billions. And otherwise, it's the same stuff. It's like you look at the budget of the United States and say, where can we cut and still have a good society that we want to live in, but not be borrowing money? And you look at a backpack load the same way and say, out of all this crap on my back, which things do I actually need and which things are BS? And which of the things that I actually need don't need to be anywhere near the weight that they are, and which things do, and how do we whittle away at all that? And
how'd you get introduced to ultralight backpacking?
Well, I liked to get outside a whole bunch when I was young, and I, from the very first time I read The Call of the Wild, what the hell am I talking about? I read it once when I had to in school. Jack London's writing, the whole notion of what it was like to experience these wolves in their natural environment. I just projected myself in the scene. I was like, yeah, I don't want to be the catcher in the rye. I don't want to be the pushcart salesman. I would like to be out with the wolves. This is some cool shit. And but I wasn't attracted to being a Boy Scout or to going to Knowles. I had friends that did all that. And I could just see instantly. I looked at, like, for instance, Knowles' catalog at the time, year after year after year, it always looked the same. There's these 7 or 8 people in this iconic scene in the Wind Rivers or in Alaska. The scenery's amazing. The people look fit as hell. But they're bent over and their packs are enormous. And it's so obvious to me that they were not having fun. They might be transforming their lives. They might be learning to bake. They might be becoming, better people. But I don't want to carry that crap. And I knew intuitively this is not the right answer. And my dad had been an Eagle Scout, and I saw, his stuff, and I was like, yeah, no, you don't know what you're doing. None of these people know what they're doing. And, maybe someday I'll figure out what's going on, or I'll stumble across somebody who does know what they're doing. But these people, this is not it. I'll just play hockey. And I grew up in Boston while Bobby Orr was playing, so that was the thing to do. And then one day, there was a 3-week stretch in 1997 when we're trying to get the balanced budget amendment to the Constitution. And again, the Senate went 66-34 in the end. 4, but you need 67. And one day I had 6 national media events, but in the middle of that day, there was a couple hours in between, and I said, I got to go clear my head. And there wasn't time to go for some real hike or anything. There was time to head up to Northwest D.C. and go to, I think it was Hudson Creek Outfitters was the name. It was the local authentic outdoor shop in D.C. and just straight up window shop. I wasn't going to get anything. I think I got a power bar. Grape. It was awful. And peanut butter, which was better. But as I was standing in line to pay for the power bars, I saw this pink book across the way. And I couldn't miss it because it jumped off the shelves. And I was like, what's that? And I was, one of these people who I recognized everything in a store. There's tens of thousands of items in the store, and I know them all. And I'd never seen that. So, hey, would you hold my place in line? And I go and I grab the book, so I look at it while I'm in line. And it was the Pacific Crest Trail Hiker's Handbook by Ray Jardine. And I'm flipping through it, and it's, got obvious points that, like, lighter is better, is more comfortable, less weight on your shoulders, da-da-da. But a few dozen pages in, there was this graph with numbers. I was like, here's data. And it showed this curve of, less weight, more miles comfortably carried. Duh. But how do we have these numbers here? That's pretty audacious. What's this all about? And then I read the text, before and after. Oh, these people have hiked the whole Pacific Crest Trail northbound and southbound. And so coming out of the various resupply points, they have data over the same terrain with a full load versus an empty load. They have absolute precise data in the chart, and here it is. Ooh, this is interesting. And I thought, okay, I got to get over to ABC, but I'm going to come back to this. And then over the course of next year, we didn't get the constitutional amendment, but we did get a balanced budget. December 31st, I briefed my wife, balanced budget next year. She said, great, what do you want to do next? I said, reform Social Security and Medicare so it stays balanced. She said, no, we came to Washington to balance the budget. Budget's balanced. What would you like to do next? And I thought, probably 12 seconds about it and said, well, the only other thing that, really pisses me off in life and gets me really going intellectually is all this shit that we carry on our mountaineering trips. And I have now been exposed to enough information to see just how radically lighter these loads, could and should be, but I don't sew stuff. And neither does anybody reading these books. And so, but I do have a Harvard Business School degree, and so do you, and yours is with honors. So we could start a company and help not only us, but thousands of other people lighten up their loads and enjoy the outdoors more. And she said, great, because I'm just about done hearing you complain about the weight of gear when we're outside. So let's either fix it or shut the fuck up. And so we launched GoLite.
Before we get into the GoLite stuff, talking about helping others lighten their loads and being able to look at those graphs and decide where things should go and what should get removed. Let's say someone listening to this, which is highly likely, is about to tackle the AT or the PCT or whatever through hike for the very first time this summer. They haven't done a trip like this before, and they're just putting together their kit because now is when people tend to start to order stuff for a summer hike. How would you walk them through where they should budget their ounces, their dollars, what they should include in their kit, what they should not? Like, what is a quick crash course you can give them on what to do and not to do?
I am going to answer your question in a way that I hope is different by far than anything you've ever heard before.
I can't wait.
Okay. Because there are many people who could answer intelligently and helpfully along the lines that I think you might expect from me. And maybe you're looking for me to have an extra decade of experience with this shit, maybe some unique perspective because I was a manufacturer, not just a hiker. F all that. There's two main modes of dealing with data, interpolation and extrapolation. And almost everybody lives their lives extrapolating. They live in the middle. They try edging out a little bit. Instead of Irish Spring, let's wash with Dove for a month and see what happens. And it takes decades and decades and decades to learn a little bit. And just from my core, I've always, not always, as long as I can remember, I have not approached things that way. I have realized how much more powerful and predictive interpolation is, which is to say having data outside the range that we're most interested in, that you then can correlate inside the data set. So for instance, as you're thinking about lightening your load, why not go to the edge? Which I did. One day, should say one night, I went out with nothing. And as I thought, but did not know, that was not optimal.
Were you naked?
Yeah.
You were naked?
Sure. That's why it was at night. It was on the Colorado Trail.
I don't know if I believe you. Did you have shoes on?
No, I was naked.
Was this an overnight or just a quick?
Well, theoretically, it could have been, but it did not turn out to be. It turned out to be quite short. Very, very short. But I said, I'm not going to spend years lightening things up a little bit, and then wondering, when am I going to die of old age, wondering if I could have gotten a 6-pound load to a 5-pound load? Fuck that. Let's go with 0 and then look back and see what we truly need. Now, interesting you asked about shoes, because while I never manufactured footwear, it was very obvious right from the start that was the very first thing missing. And before I would put on underwear or carry water or food or a hat, I would have something on my feet. That was like number one. Like, what is the limiting factor? I don't care if it's 20 below. To me, my delicate little feet on the rough ground were having a rougher time than any other part of my body or mind. But from that experience, then I was like, okay, let's add this back. Let's add this back. Let's add this back. And very, very, very quickly, I came to what was an optimal load for me in a wide variety of situations, which is not precisely the same by any stretch as some other leading thinkers and practitioners in this area. So I would encourage, in answer to your question, I would encourage people to make radical, extreme choices, as extreme as they can possibly get their goddamn psyches to accept, in small, forgiving experiments, and get after it, and then answer that question for your damn self. Go out with as little as you could possibly imagine. Not on Denali, not in the 100-mile wilderness, but if you're near the AT, some forgiving stretch of the AT, and then find out for yourself, what is it that you truly need to feel safe, comfortable, secure, and enjoy yourself? Because for the most part, we're doing this for fun. So the thing that, the X that we're trying to maximize, it's really F, is fun or enjoyment. And don't take a long time taking baby steps from one direction toward finding out what that is for you. Go bracket it. So here's another, concept is, one of the most important people on a battlefield is the forward observer for artillery fire. There's somebody looking to see where the rounds go. Once upon a time, I was in ROTC. I was going to graduate in '88. I surveyed the geopolitical landscape and didn't think there was anybody stupid enough to F with the United States. So I was bored in '86 and got out. Turns out there was this one guy. Anyway, but I was clearly going to end up in artillery because I could do trig in my head, and that was useful there. And or Northern Warfare School, because my metabolism was very fast and I don't get cold easily. And anyway, you send the first round in, and the forward observer sees the round land in a certain place. They don't walk the next round toward the target. They bracket the target. So if you missed what the forward observer thinks might be 100 meters west, he'll call for the next round to be 150 meters east of there. and then the second round comes in, intentionally missing the mark, but on the other side. But now you've bracketed, and you can say, okay, it was, I was wrong. It was actually, that one's just as far on the other side, so this one we want right in between. Well, that third piece, now that you have those two pieces of data, the third one can be right on target. And so you call for the third round. The third round comes in, it's on the target, and you say fire for effect. Sexiest words in artillery. And so same thing, go out with as much as you want the first time. See how much that sucks. Because it's different to read about it in a book and to listen to, my nonsense on a podcast, and to actually go out there and say, wow, my shoulders hurt. And no matter how well this pack transfers load from my shoulders to my hips, it's still on my legs, and this sucks. And I don't know why anybody would do this for fun. This is not fun. Then go do the opposite. Go out with as little as you could possibly imagine, possibly 0. But maybe 2 or 3 pounds total from skin out, everything. Maybe 5 fingers and no socks on your feet, and similarly underdressed and under-resourced in every other respect, and see what you really miss. Like, I don't miss lip balm at all, but I really would like earbuds. Who knows what it is for different people? And then interpolate what actually floats your boat and move from there.
Are you of the mindset that fun correlates directly with the weight on your back, or is there some minimum threshold where as long as you're past that, the additional pound or two is still within that range of fun, so it's not necessarily extraneous, if that makes sense?
I think that for almost everybody out there, almost all the time, in almost every situation, they would have more fun if they carried less stuff, including me. Almost always. Example, when I hiked the Colorado Trail, at the end, I had 4 pounds of food. What the hell does that mean? That means that I carried 4 pounds of food, more than 170,000 feet up and down, almost 500 miles, and did not eat it. Well, that sucks. I've only had, in fact, one long trip ever, the Long Trail in Vermont, where everything was totally dialed. I used absolutely everything I carried. I ate my last morsel of food an hour before the end.
That's such a good feeling.
Without any bending of, I was responding completely to appetite. Yeah, and it was like the closest thing to, it was the backpacking equivalent of simultaneous orgasm to get to the end, and like, I'm perfect. Let's go to Mickey D's. And
was that a fully unsupported hike as well?
Yeah. It actually, to this day, still seems to be the only unsupported through hike of the Long Trail ever, which is phenomenally easier to do than the Colorado Trail for distance. It's just, it's less reasonable because it's so easy to resupply there. I did it as a multi-prong training up to the Colorado Trail. So I used a John Muir Trail unsupported through hike to prep for Long Trail unsupported through hike, to basically be the shakedown cruise to prove or disprove all little things I needed to know before I took on the Colorado Trail.
Taking on these long hikes unsupported seems contrary to somebody that thinks that heavy packs is not an enjoyable experience. You just like the mental fortitude that
people are not fully rational, including me, period. What the fuck is it that makes me want to do that? And why, and how could I possibly talk somebody else into enjoying it? Well, let's give up on the second one, because if you don't have the bug, great. For what it's worth, I do not value doing what other people do. I just don't. I don't know where it comes from. It may be as simple as my mom was the first immunohematologist in the world. And there are millions of people alive who otherwise would not be because of the work that she did. And she never really worried about being female at the time that she was and wanting to be a scientist and doors being open or closed. She's like, F it, I'll just invent my own science. And then all the guys can come and play with me. And that's, I think, possibly what puts the little, seed inside me that says, I'm fascinated with the question, like, how far can someone go? And by the way, the answer is so far beyond what's been done so far. So far. I have figured out how to do some trips that are utterly mind-blowing and utterly paradigm-shifting, but I have a 14-year-old and a wife, and I'm waiting for just the right time and just the right opportunity to deploy this insanity so far beyond anything I've ever done and beyond what others have done. And hopefully I get to. But every now and then, especially at like 3 a.m. while you're looking at, you commented on a crazy sheet of numbers I have in my notebook.
Flip back to that.
Well, 3 a.m, I'll be scribbling away, and every now and then you're just like, what is wrong with you? Why don't you just get a little light load and go enjoy the weekend? And the answer is because I can't just go enjoy the weekend. I've been there, done that. Not interested. Some people like the Beatles, some people like the Stones, some people like Pink Floyd. I happen to like all three. But who the hell knows what makes you gravitate, to what you gravitate. But that's how I'm wired.
Are you pursuing novel experience, a challenging experience? Like, what is it that interests you?
Probably a combination of the physical, the mental, which is the scientific mathematical, and there's no way around the spiritual that comes in when you have applied yourself, fully. I mean, there are plenty of times, back in civilization when I'm, fat and comfortable and wonder if there's a God, and then you have an experience out in the wilderness. It's like, a little help, God, and that's just magical. And I think it's all that coming together. I don't know if you ever heard of the Enneagram? I think people,
the personality types.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know how. Enea is the Greek word for 9, so that's how it actually should be pronounced. But that's not how Westerners pronounce it. But commonly, people that are into this stuff mistake me as a 7 that is a little too interested in the unknown and adventure, when actually that's not what I am at all. I'm a 1. I'm a reformer. 7 is me ascending into novel experiences and trying things out. That's actually, leaning toward my best self. But at heart, I'm a reformer. I'm the guy that wants to get a constitutional amendment to balance the budget of the United States government. I'm the guy that wants to help everybody lighten up and enjoy the outdoors more, because that'll create the army that'll save the planet. And part and parcel with that is having the integrity or insanity, it all depends on how you look at it, to load up certain loads and get out there. And while my pack is, can be extraordinarily heavy with food, the gear's actually, the base load's quite impressive. It's respectable. I mean, when I go out with an 80-pound load, my shelter weighs 9 ounces. It's a bunch of tarp.
So 75 pounds of that food?
70. Yeah.
How do you decide what to eat in a day when you're doing such long, unsupported hikes and the weight matters?
You mean, how do you decide what to eat while you're out there, or decide to eat when you pack?
Well, when you put what you're eating into your pack, how do you decide what makes the cut versus what doesn't?
Okay. Because when you're out there, you eat what's in your pack.
Right. Exactly.
I'm not much of a forager. Again, I have a much different take than most on this. Surprise, surprise. I am an omnivore normally. I'm pretty well a vegan when I go on unsupported backpacking trips. And the reason is because I think that there's an optimal amount of protein and there's an optimum amount of all 9 essential amino acids to be taking in while under stress and duress and working hard. And like every other nutrient, much more of it than is optimal is not helpful. And so when I'm going multi-day, I'm eating a lot of calories. And without any effort whatsoever, I'm getting all the protein I need and then some from vegan sources. And so the last thing I would want is to, I love meat for dinner at home when I'm eating 2,000 or 2,500 calories a day. But when I'm having twice that amount of calories in the outdoors, I don't want twice that much protein. I want about the same amount of protein that I have in a normal day at home. And so now I approach that a couple of different extreme ways. Decades ago, Colorado Trail, I ate exactly what really floated my boat at the time, which mostly was mangoes, dried mangoes.
I love dried mangoes on trail.
Who doesn't?
They're so good.
Well, so I would have like 18 to 20 ounces a day, and my poop was beautiful orange, like Princeton orange, and it was really cool, and I never ever got tired of it, and it was not only was there like plenty of useful carb energy in there, but the chewiness gave me like all that oral satisfaction that meat normally would, and yet just it didn't really get in between the teeth in a way that that you felt like you needed a flosser, and it was great. So some nuts, and I'm good to go, like all day. More recently, I have gravitated toward just a few different kinds of bars that I think are really, really healthy, and so I don't know. Do you know macro bars?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's 14 different flavors of macro bars, 7 of which I like, 3 of which are okay, one's kind of okay, and 3 of which are just they're perfectly fine, but they're not me. And I have no problem just having 2 pounds of those a day, day after day after day after day after day. I once went out with 273 Pro bars. Nothing else in my pack, but literally just 273 Pro. Now, there are different flavors, different types of Pro bars. I lean on 2 of them because the only ones that have the green stuff in them are the ones that I can go like all day, all night, nothing but Pro bars and not have heartburn. But it makes packing so much simpler because you don't have to split it up into day bags, and it all just nestles into the pack so well when you just throw 270 bars in there, right?
Sure.
So, but that's all really specific. Here's the much more general answer to your question. I pack whatever I damn well want to eat. And I've just told you what it tends to be. But if it was different, if it was magnificent, pasta dinners, I would do that. But I don't cook during, I only cook in winter. I melt snow.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't cook because I'm not there to enjoy my cooking. My cooking is not, I'm not the greatest cook. Okay, there. So that's not why I'm there. I'm there to like see stuff and get after it. And so I want to be moving as much as humanly possible and eating only enough, eating and drinking and sleeping enough to fully support that. And when it's over, it's over. I go home, and as already indicated, I can watch a bunch of other people crash into each other on TV while I eat a pizza as well as anybody else.
So it sounds like you're a full day snacker and anti-backpacking meals. You're not like a sit-down dinner time, end of my hiking day. You're just a full day
I have
grazer.
backpacking meals in our basement waiting for the apocalypse. And occasionally, because you get to the end of their useful life, I eat them for dinner at home.
So you do not bring them on trail.
No,
Okay.
I don't.
Okay.
But I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah.
It's just not. It's not me.
Yeah.
All right. I want to get to GoLite because you sprinkled the origin story there. You ran into Ray Jardine's book at an outfitter, and that planted the seed for you.
Mm-hmm.
Take us into the early days of GoLite, your relationship with Ray Jardine, all that.
Well, so interestingly, shortly after Kim, December 31st, 97, said, came here to balance the budget balance, what's next? I got the Adventure Travelers Bookstore catalog dropped into my mailbox, and I opened it up, and I'm flipping through, and there's like an editor's pick box around this book that says one of our favorite books, and it's Jardine's book. Okay, let's get it now, and let's read it, and let's devour it. And I later noted that month after month I would get the Adventure Travelers Bookstore catalog, and it was never one of their favorite books again. Those were randomly generated. So I just fell into it was just a sign. But when I devoured Pacific Crest Trail Hiker's Handbook, I was somewhat taken aback in a very healthy way to see that there were basically 3 buckets of ideas in there. Things that were obviously true to me, and I'd already came to those conclusions myself and experimented with and proven out for my own enjoyment. Other things that that I hadn't thought about before, and let's give this a try. Interesting. But then there was lots of different ideas where I was ashamed to admit to myself, wow, I've had that idea. I've tried that. I've seen that it worked. And then I stopped doing it because as much as I pride myself on thinking outside the box, I got sucked back into the box. It's how everybody else is doing it. It's the preferred way. It's what's on the list from the guide service and the outfitters and all this. God damn it. And so I fairly well vowed not to fall into that again. And I rolled up my sleeves and got after cobbling together the closest thing I could to the sub 10-pound load that I was reading about. And in just a day's shopping within walking distance of my place, I was in Boston. All of Boston is walking distance. Well, everything is walking distance if you can get through the Darien Gap. But long story short, end of the day, $100 in, I'd cobbled together a load that was between 12 and 13 pounds for an overnight base. And, all shitty gear, not purposely built for backpacking whatsoever. But let's just go, prove this out. And I went out on the AT, 3-hour drive out to Williamstown, a little section northwest Massachusetts on up into Vermont, and went for 3 days, 2 nights, and yep, this is the way to do it. There's lots of little details that I need to improve on, but just in case there were any doubt whatsoever, yes, my whole body feels phenomenally better after 3 days of backpacking with this 12-pound base load, less than 20 pounds from skin out even with food from the start, than the traditional load that I used to carry. And by the way, my traditional load wasn't really traditional load. Kim and I were both making plenty of money, and we didn't have a lot of free time, and we didn't have a bunch of other expensive vices in life. So the only thing we had to spend some coin on was outdoor gear. So we could afford the very, very, very best, quote unquote, gear. And that was not only heavy, that was the heaviest. So in a world full of people with 5 and 6 pound packs, we had, the 7 pound, 14 ounce pack for me. And God bless her, her size was only 7 pounds, 3 ounces and stuff like that. And so my overnight transformation was enormous. I went from a base load in the 40s and in certain climates in the 50s overnight to 12 or 13 like that, and said, hell yes, now let's get this below 10 and let's help other people do the same. So
did this require you making your own gear?
Well, yeah, that's where I'm going next. I can't sew. I can't even begin to comprehend. I've sat at a sewing machine. I've been taught to sew. I can't sew. Different people have different strengths and different aptitudes, and I don't get it at all. But I know how to read a balance sheet, and I know how to interview people, and I know how to draw. And so I had the right skill set not to make 2 sets of everything for Kim and me. I had the right skill set to get with Kim and make things by the thousands, or at least 1200s, for production runs. And so that's what we did. And frankly, intellectually, that was much more what I wanted to do anyway. I didn't want to. If it was just about my own selfish enjoyment in the outdoors, I could have settled on that 12 or 13 pound load and refined from there. It's just, that's not what I was about.
So from my research, correct me if I'm wrong, but did you have a personal relationship with Ray Jardine?
Well, I developed one.
Yeah.
I wrote him out of the blue, and basically sent him a multi-page letter that, in essence, and he got the essence, was, you've written this book, you've propagated this knowledge, you've shared all these ideas with people, but the truth is that damn well that people are not sewing their own stuff out there. And so really, you're teasing people. And I don't think we should tease people. I think we should show them a good time. And if you'd like to do that together, then I'd be happy to bring the core, the most important bunch of your products to market. And if not, that's fine. We'll find some other way to help people in this area. And that struck a chord with him. He's like, yeah, I don't put words in his mouth, but in essence, what came back was, yeah, you're right. We're teasing people. Let's stop. Let's do this. Let's help people. I think the precise words were something inside me said, yeah, let's give the hikers a break. I was like, great. So we got together and we identified. It was very obvious to him and to me, and I think it would be obvious to anybody that rolled up their sleeves and looked at it all. Like, here's the 12 most important products that Ray and Jenny were making for themselves that utterly transformed the load, and everything else is at the margin. And we brought them to market. 11 the first season, 1 straggled a season behind. So by the second season, we had all 12 out to market, and so right off the bat, in one of the earlier advertisements, we said, on the GoLite diet, you can lose 60 pounds overnight and keep it off forever. And like that was the essence of it. Another one was we had pictures of Kim mountaineering and with her old traditional load and with a GoLite load, and one said be strong enough to carry more than 60 pounds, and then the flip side was and smart enough to carry less than 10. So that was the idea.
So is Ray an owner in the business?
Nope.
No.
No, we licensed the designs from Ray. The deal was we've got the designs, we've got exclusive use of designs, obviously modified to varying degrees for engineering and production, but the essence of the designs. And marketing support from Ray in his publications and communications. And he got a cut of sales in a quarterly check for years and years and years. So that was it. He didn't want to have any part in the business, and I thought that made total sense. I knew enough to know I had complete and total trust and faith, and always have and always will, in Kim, my wife. I chose her very, very, very carefully, and I am glad to be in bed with her, and I'm glad to be in business with her. I have allowed both of my parents to be involved in business. At one point, I asked my dad, why should we let you be part of this business? Because you don't know anything about this business. And his answer was, because I fed you. So, okay, that passes muster. Those are the only relationships that I've had as partners and owners. And George, my 14-year-old son, same thing. All in, you're part of it. Everything else has been transactional. I've had very rich, multi-decade relationships with people, but it hasn't been ownership partnership. It's been employee.
So it was the 12 initial designs. You said 11 the first year.
Yeah.
What were the
first season?
First season.
The only was only 6. There's 2 main seasons in the outdoor industry, so they only straggled 6 months, not 12.
Yeah. What were the biggest sellers out the gate?
Well, there wasn't tremendous variation in the sales because the vast majority of people, like most companies, when you come out with 12 products, one of them is 80% of your sales, right? Which is hence your question. That's not how it was for GoLite. I didn't think it was going to be like that, but I also wouldn't have been surprised if it was, because that's how it works. But that's not how it worked for us. People got that it was a system. They got that it was intended as a system. They got that it worked together synergistically as a system. And they basically, I can't remember if it's the red pill or the blue pill, but they swallowed the damn pill and they were in. And, what was interesting was early on, so the factor, between the highest seller and the lowest seller out of those dozen products first year, it's like 2 to 1. And plenty of people, like our very first customer was a spook who bought 2 of everything. And Kim, asked, if this guy's ever captured, what's going to happen? I said, the bad guys are going to spend millions and millions of dollars trying to figure out what Project GoLite is. So the interesting thing from a customer standpoint right off the bat was, well, there was 2. One is we had designs for how do we penetrate the Japanese market in our 5th year? Fuck that. Our first week, we had sales on 5 continents. Because the world was filled with small bands of backpackers and nooks and crannies all over the world who wanted this stuff.
What year is this?
This is 98.
Okay.
And the instant some a-hole in Colorado says, I got the stuff, people said, great, well, let's try it. Second thing that was, even more interesting to me is almost nobody that first year or two tried GoLite products because they wanted to lighten up. All of our customers tried GoLite products because they had to lighten up. The vast majority of our customers were middle-aged, had enjoyed the hell out of backpacking in their youth, had more or less given it up because they couldn't take the loads anymore. And here comes this company that says, we can give you your outdoor fun back without those loads. And they're like, hell yes, I'll give it a try. And, of course, they're also at a place where while our gear was quite inexpensive for what it was, because, we're selling you less stuff, is dematerialized. In almost all cases, this was people already had a full assortment of kit. So they were getting their second or third bunch of stuff. But at their ages and given their preferences, they had the coin to do it, and they had the priority to go ahead and do it. So it was an impulse buy for lots and lots of customers. Impulse buy from an economic standpoint, utter necessity from, you're giving me my outdoor experience back. Thank you so much.
I'm so intrigued by the marketing angle of this. So how much of this is you reaching people who are already aware of the ultralight movement that Ray had initiated? You mentioned obviously getting it in the hands of older people who need it in order to be able to do the sport that they love. And how much of this is you having to educate the masses on why going lighter is important?
At the very, very start, first 6 to 12 months, it was almost entirely people were self-educated. But we tapped them out really quickly. Even though the internet was just in its infancy back then, this news spread far and wide very quickly. And so everybody who fit the description I just gave you, they were in year one. They didn't wonder about it and hem and haw about it and think about it and research it and wait for the second round and the third round. They're just in. Our very best outdoor rep. You guys know the business well enough to know about, like, companies have reps who sell. Okay. So our best seller, a guy who sold a third of everything that ever got sold into the U.S. marketplace, Greg Letts, California. First couple seasons, I don't like to ask too many questions when things are going right. Let's just leave well enough alone. But when we get to like the fifth or sixth sales meeting, and there's plenty of reps who could, in my opinion, sell a hell of a lot more and don't really know what they're doing. Hey, Greg, why don't you have a couple-hour session here? The floor is yours. Tell everybody how you do it. And I had enough faith in Greg to ask him. I didn't like to and don't like to script things in such a way that I plan it out with him in advance. Like, no, screw that. If you think he's got something to say, then invite him to say it, and whatever he says, right? But I definitely had an expectation that he was all in from the start, and this made so much sense, and I believed in it, and I heard the message, and so I put these business plans together, and I planted these seeds, and here's how I built up my market, and blah, 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 blah. And that's not at all what he said straight up. I really wanted this stuff. I figured the company wouldn't be around 12 months, maybe not even 6, so I better get in right at the start so I could get all the samples for my own personal use. And that's my first mover advantage. Next question. And but after a year and certainly a year and a half, it was all education. We were mostly an educational company who also made products that we educated people about. And Kim was in charge of all the marketing, so she was very much the lead educator from a written standpoint. You know, the catalogs were not just lists of gears; they were all about how you use it in the website too, and a lot of the work was figuring out how to explain things, how to meet people where they were, and which of course first requires learning where they are in a really rich, detailed manner. And while we didn't approach everything from a classical business standpoint of segmenting the market and all this, ultimately some market segmentation came out of that. There's definitely somewhat different ways that male and female approached what we were offering, and therefore how we approached them, how older and middle-aged and younger approached. But we also learned that there was a richer mix than for most companies that I'd ever studied in school. I mean, hell, Harvard Business School, I went through 800 freaking case studies. So I'd seen an awful lot of different, I'd had a lot of faux experiences with different things. And this was somewhat unlike anything I'd ever read about or studied, in that the demographics were far less important than the psychographics. And so ultimately, any new person added to the marketing team, they'd say what's our demographic? I'm like, we don't have a demographic. We have a psychographic. What's our psychographic? Young at heart. We had so many people, they're 70 or they're 80, but there's a joy and a lightness in their heart. And then they were completely open-minded to the lightness on the back, and not having, didn't want mental burdens, didn't have mental burdens, and they didn't want physical burdens that would laden them with mental burdens. So anyway,
if we could, just for the listener, I imagine many of our older listeners are very familiar with GoLite already, but we have a lot of younger listeners.
Some of them are dead.
Sure. We've got a lot of dead listeners.
Polly, clip that.
But can we just do a quick run through of the first 12 products and their approximate weights? We don't have to get down to the exact grams, but what are the things that are people flocking to when you first come into operation?
Yeah, so it's not going to be very surprising when you think about the load. It's what weighs a whole lot? What still weighs a whole lot? What are we working on? So in no particular order, there's a pack. But you can't just lighten the hell out of the pack. 13 ounces, by the way, size large, 12 ounces, size medium. I think it was called regular. You can't just lighten up the pack, because if you just lighten up the pack, then it doesn't carry the stuff comfortably. In fact, the stuff doesn't even fit inside. So part and parcel with that, at the very same time, there's the sleep system, consisting of the shelter, and the quilt married to its pad, both of which were radical innovations at the time, and that's the core of the outdoor products for equipment. But there was another piece of equipment, which was the umbrella, and this was one of the interesting things is people think in terms of GoLite's all about less, but in some odd ways we're putting things in your pack that nobody was carrying at the time. No, here's an umbrella. On the one hand, it only weighs 9 ounces. On the other hand, that's 9 more than you used to carry in an umbrella. On the other hand, you're going to make up some of those and not carrying rain pants anymore, because they're not of all that use that much. And your rain jacket is going to be a hell of a lot lighter than it ever was before. And you're rarely going to use it because almost all the time it's raining, it's actually drizzling. And for drizzle, this is far superior, and here's why, blah, 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 blah. Also sun, and that's why it's reflective. And now you see like the equipment bleeds over into the apparel, because the apparel is also part of the equipment system, including an insulated jacket, 13 ounces for my men's large at the time. Then I became a double X. Now I'm back to large. And the women's was a length 11 ounces for the medium. And only synthetic insulation, because Kim and I were vegans at the time, and we also wanted the products to be as robust as possible in a wide variety of situations, including very wet ones, though we later came around to the unique, wonderful qualities of goose down in many, not all, situations. So there was the insulated parka. There was also a rain jacket. There were rain pants. You asked, like, what sells less than other things? The rain pants. Why? Because we told people not to buy them.
I love rain pants.
But some people bought them anyway. Yes, including there were disproportionate sales to women folk.
Really?
So yeah, for just that reason. And I'm convinced it's not just an irrational fear of having wet legs, but a rational propensity toward running colder.
Yes.
And this is not just protection from rain, it's also, a straight up complete wind barrier and a little bit, teeny tiny bit of insulation as well. So, which, as an aside, there's so many times when you look at customer behavior and you say, why are they doing that? And there's always a reason. It pays so much intellectually, not just from a business standpoint, to like figure out what are they doing. Because every now and then you hire some whippersnapper that says it's heard a phrase here or there, and they just throw out in some meeting, customers are dumb. Like, oh yeah, well then how come every time we make a cost mistake in our projections for how much something's going to cost to make it market, they jump right on it and we sell 5 times as much as we expected to and lose money on every goddamn sale. Like, they're friggin' brilliant. They're 6 months ahead of us. So anyway, and there were stuff sacks. That's most of it. But and mosquito-proof wind top and bottom, which was not only to save lots and lots of weight compared to typical shells out there, not just the ones at the time, but especially compared to the soft shells that came in waves in the first couple of years that we were in business. The soft shell thing took off, and we were like, no, don't do that. But functionality was core right from the start. And if there's one thing that just utterly ruins an outdoor experience in my book, it's mosquitoes. And so we wanted an absolute strict barrier against them. And turns out mosquitoes with some of the very smallest proboscises that there are in Hawaii. And I had a very good friend that lived right across the hall in business school that's a Hawaiian. And so I sent him fabrics to test, and he went out and told me which ones were truly mosquito-proof for the tightest little biters that there are, and we brought those out, and those were wonderful products too. Most of not all of these, everything but the umbrella evolved and improved with technology, fabrics that were available, in many cases with technology that we pushed and drove, with large companies that were supplying textiles. And also with our evolving understanding of design and how it interacted with what our customers were experiencing. Back to textiles, one of the most fascinating things of all for me was, Gore was, of course, the big supplier of the highest end, most expensive, most sought after textiles. And I had no real interest in Gore products because I thought waterproof breathables were extremely overused, overvalued, overmarketed, oversold. And my own experience in the wilderness told me that there's very limited time. It's like a gun. You rarely need it, but when you do need it, okay, yeah, you need it very badly and very quickly. But in general, like most of the time, these weekend trips, like you don't need this. So I expected when Gore came around and sat down with us at our very first trade show, I expected to just be a provocative little prick with them and never hear from them again, but at least have my pride completely intact. So they showed me Packlight, which was their new thing, and look at that! It's spelled the same way as GoLite. It's one word and it's got a big L, and ITE, and so they're like, yeah, we're meant to be together. Like, all right, well, let me get out my little drug scale, and I weighed it, and I was like, too heavy, not interested. And they were flabbergasted, and their rep, who used to have an outdoor gear company of his own, just said that's not the script. You're supposed to beg me for this. You're nobody. You're nobody and nothing, and you're the president of nothing, and you need us to. I was like, I said flat out to him when he was all done. I was like, I have knee pads and I know how to use them, but you don't have anything to interest me. Come back with some shit that's at least 60% lighter, and we'll talk. And again, I thought that was okay. That's it. I'll never hear from them again. My name's going to go on a list. My company's going to go on a list, and I don't have to worry about junk mail from Gore. Instead, 6 months later, they come, and they're like, "Oh, we have several different things for you to try. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this." Again, like, don't ask any questions. But years later, I'm like, what was that all about, right? And I found I had more mind share in there than anyone, and it was because accountants don't run that company. Chemists do. Chemists say, from a certain standpoint, finance people, run certain things, but how the chemists actually spend their time, how the people that work on the textiles actually spend their time and effort, and where they get off, is like, that's all like challenge. These are people with PhDs, and they're bored out of their frickin' minds. And there's this one asshole in Colorado challenging them and saying, you can do better than that. And they're like, yeah, I can. And I'm gonna. I'll see you in 6 months. And fortunately I hit my cues, right. 6 months later I didn't say, hey, that's just good enough. No, I was like, it still sucks, And 18 months into it, like, okay, that's pretty good. Packlight 3, let's go, let's rock. So, and they're not the only ones, but there's lots and lots and lots of companies that we had a very useful synergistic relationship with, because we were pushing them to innovate, and they were irrationally competing for that pride of supplying us, but they were also rationally realizing that whatever we were demanding, the rest of the market was going to start to demand more and more and more 3 to 5 years later, and did.
So with you basically bringing ultralight products to mass market, you don't really have any direct competition. Like, I know you have other gear competition, but no one's selling the things that you're selling. How many, like, what is your average buy, your average customer look like? Are people coming in and buying the full fleet of thing? I remember you mentioned that somebody had come through and bought 2 of everything, but like, what does your average customer look like? Are they buying 5 items at a time, or is it they're dabbling and buying one thing that stands out?
Very few would buy everything in one shot, but very many would buy everything within 2 or 3 months. So any given sale, you'd look at 1 or 2 or 3 things trickling out the door, but you follow that name along, and oh yeah, look at that! Over 4 months, they'd bought everything but the rain pants. Or no, they bought the
rain pants.
Oh, look, they came back. They came back next year for the rain pants. Most people were in for the whole shooting match. Now, In the ensuing years, we attracted more and more competition, both from above and below, and especially from below, happily so. Like cottage industry, we were asked all the time, like, what do you think about so-and-so, this new startup? Their competitors are like, they're not competitors of ours. They're co-operators in a movement. This is not us against them. This is us and them against a standard paradigm that is getting people to bend over and see the trail in front of them, not the mountains in the distance, and not enjoy the outdoors and not go out again next weekend. And of course, all these different new companies have a different take on how to do an ultralight shelter or pack or sleeping bag system or insulated jacket. And God bless them. Let 1,000 flowers bloom. I even used a few of their things. I saw them using our stuff. Great. What was going on from above was a lot different. For the most part, the largest, most entrenched industry players were, just as there's greenwashing is rampant now, lightwashing was rampant then. One example is a pack that I had way back in the day. I'm not going to name names, but you can see it in any ancient picture of me on Denali. The pack weighed 6 pounds, 14 ounces. And then a few years later, it was 7 pounds and 3 ounces. And a few years later, it was 7 pounds, 10 ounces. Then it was 7 pounds, 14 ounces. And then they came out with the ultralight version. And it was back to 6 pounds and 14 ounces. That's just the same damn shit I had. And what are you trying to pull here? And that same thing played out in all kinds of different areas. On the other hand, some large competitors, did brilliant and useful things for the customer. The very best example, just stands completely out on its own, is an awful lot of companies, saw GoLite at the first trade show that we displayed at, and they said, these crazy bastards will be out of business in 6 months. One company that I was a customer of, Marmot, they looked at us and said, yeah, this is some bad shit, crazy stuff, and I wonder what they're smoking. But look at that rain jacket. Interesting. Waterproof, breathable rain jacket, 140. No, I think $199, and it weighs this much, and 9 ounces, I think it was, and it's not quite finished in the way that we would do it. Here's how we would do it, and it takes it up to 12 ounces, and at our scale, it became so. And at our scale, we, why is it $199? Oh, because they're making 800 a time. We make things like 3,000 a time. So now we could retail this at $149. Oh, wait a minute. At that, we would sell more. And then, what if we just bit the bullet? And could we possibly do a really light rain jacket, legitimately light, not ultralight, but light? Fully functional rain jacket, $99. Fuck it. That's Precip. Precip exists because of GoLite, because of a rational, intelligent, larger company. They weren't a large company, but they're a larger company. Reaction to that. It's like, good for them.
Yeah, and they had the economy of scale to edge you out price-wise.
Well, they used that economy of scale intelligently and built on it, not from a box you out competitive a-hole way that doesn't serve the customer. They looked at it the right way and said, it's analogous to, the more you lighten up, the more you can lighten up. You lighten up the pack, you lighten up the shelter, you lighten up the bag, you lighten up the apparel. and now you don't need boots. Now you're in trail runners, and now because you have trail runners, you're covering more miles in a day. Because you're covering more miles in a day, it's less miles between resupplies. For those who resupply, I've never resupplied in my freaking life. Don't even understand what that is, but if you did, so now you're carrying less food, you're carrying less water in between water sources because less time for them. And now because of all that, now we can lighten up again. And it's synergistic. And as I already identified, the asymptote that we're heading toward is not zero, but depending on who you are, it might be as low as 4 or 5 pounds from skin out, maybe as high as 10 or 12, depending on the season, depending on the person. Similarly here, there's a limit to where all this can go. It's not a free precept, but what if we just rolled up our sleeves and said, let's reimagine our whole business and say, yes, we're a full service mountaineering apparel company, great, but within a few years, half of our business is going to be this one jacket. And if we think that way, market that way, engineer that way, hire that way, now what can it be? And so they synergized all the elements of their business. That's what delivered you a $99, 12-ounce, fully functional, attractive, useful product like that. Great. Wish I thought of it.
Yeah. Well, you inspired it, so you get a piece of the accolades there. So walk me through the process in scaling GoLite, because obviously you guys got huge. I know you had multiple storefronts.
Huge is relative.
Sure. Huge for
Amazon's huge.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Something that's kind of bringing something to market. You definitely leveled up what seems to be pretty quickly. At what was the number of stores that you got up to?
We had roughly 20 storefronts at one time.
Yeah. So
at the end,
walk me through the point of scaling to the point where, like, you're reaching people who are only aware of this very niche thing, which is ultralight backpacking, to having over 20 storefronts throughout the country.
Well, if you rolled up your sleeve and looked at the details, and we're an insomniac, and we're obsessed, you would do what I did when I did it, how I did it. And like anything in life, hindsight's 20/20, and you look back and say, well, some people look back and say, I wouldn't change a thing. And from a learning standpoint, that's certainly where I am. Like, I wouldn't have the insights I have on what I'm going to be launching soon enough to help other people get their heart rate to 36 and mine to 35 if I hadn't gone through all this. On the other hand, my mentality is different. I look back and say, like, no, if I had it all to do over again, I would do everything differently. I would do everything perfectly. Well, I wouldn't do everything different. I did a couple things perfectly, like the long trail amount of food I carried. That was perfect. But there's a precious few times. It was absolutely perfect, right? So scaling up and selling direct are instances where, GoLite was either very innovative and very fast moving, or doing the obvious and a day late and dollar short, just depending on your perspective and what your standards are. On the one hand, one day we let all of our dealers know we're happy to keep supplying you, but next year we are going to sell everything direct for half as much, and so now's a great time to drop us if you'd like.
Did everyone drop you immediately?
All but two.
Okay.
And very, very, very particular, like, on-trail businesses that it made sense to continue. All the others took us up on it. But if you had experienced what we experienced in direct sales to customers, especially in Boulder, but not only in Boulder, in 50% off, warehouse sales, and seeing that, for instance, at 50% off, we were making the same margin that we would selling to dealers, but we were selling 18 times as much. What the fuck? All of a sudden, instead of like selling 500 or 600 out of a production of 1,000, no, now it's like, now we need, several productions and much larger productions just to make enough of these things. And we're selling as much in a day in Boulder as we normally sell in the entire United States in a season. What the fuck? and so on the outside, people are like, wow, this is really ballsy, the move you're making. I don't know if I'd have the guts to do that. And I'm looking at the data, I'm like, I should have figured this out years ago. What the hell? What is taking me so long to do these experiments and figure this out? This is back to discussion like interpolation, extrapolation. Let's go out with nothing and see what happens. Damn it. Why so slow?
What year is this?
Every goddamn year. There's stuff like this. But the total transition to, going direct is 2012, I think.
Okay.
And January 1st, 2012. And all sparked with, a single week of selling, literally more than we had in 6 months nationally, making 42%, having people line up around the block, watching movies overnight to get an early place in the line. And on the way out the door, they thank me for the opportunity. I'm like, oh, this is, and they didn't ask me to go to Salt Lake City every 6 months and pay for hotel rooms and set up trade show booths. I was like, this is different. I'm sleeping in my own bed, making a profit and getting thanked. Oh, okay, yeah. And, I think Andy mentioned to you guys that we would have been better off going, direct earlier. No question. We were pioneers. So there's an interesting concept here. Almost everybody thinks in terms of an early mover in business having first mover advantage. And I not only had seen enough cases in business school to know that that's not always the case, although sometimes it is. Sometimes first mover advantage is incredibly powerful. On the other hand, not only in business school, but also just on Denali, I had this experience over and over, not only on Denali, but especially on Denali. I was on a team that was the first team into 14 and the first team into 17 in 1997. And because of that, team after team after team after team stacked up in those two camps, waiting for somebody to break trail up to 17 from 14 and to the summit from 17. And both times having been the first team in, we were the ones that broke trail. And, business cases can teach you, but if you really, really want to learn something emotionally, there's nothing like being waist deep in fucking powder hour after hour after hour after hour breaking trail. And GoLite broke a lot of trail. Damn. and it's really painful. And in many, many respects, incredibly rewarding and psychically and experientially, but also just scar tissue upon scar tissue upon scar tissue as you break trail and see others come up behind. So, what was the question?
I think you're answering it wonderfully. I was basically just asking about the journey of scaling.
Yeah, so we broke trail into selling direct. We broke trail into, from moving from selling wholesale to then selling direct. We broke trail in opening up a bunch of stores. If you saw the returns and the economics of our Pearl Street store, you would absolutely go open up a store in Silverthorne. And if you saw the economics of the store in Silverthorne, you would absolutely, because nobody makes money on Pearl Street, but we did a lot. And nobody makes money at that outlet in Silverthorne, but we did a lot. So now let's go to the better outlets where people actually make money, and let's go to some other towns that resemble Boulder. Oh, it's not working.
Yeah.
There's certain things that that work and scale, and certain others that absolutely don't. And
why didn't that work?
So there's all kinds of detail stuff, like, so for instance, Boulder Pearl Street versus a lot of other retail locations. Let's tackle that one first. As I mentioned, Boulder Pearl Street is notorious for making a marketing statement, but you lose money there. But all your Japanese customers, for a Japanese company that I won't name, it's not about that. It's about having a picture of your Boulder store, so that the 170 out of 170.5 million that you sell globally, that you sell in your home market in Japan, they see you're super cool. You have your store on Pearl Street in Boulder. Well, that's not what it was for us. But that's because Boulder was a GoLite town. Boulder was the GoLite town. And so when you take that same thing and say, well, Santa Fe's like Boulder in certain ways, let's try it there. Yes, Santa Fe is like Boulder in some ways, and and Portland is too, and some other places we tried are too. But they're not GoLite towns. There isn't this rich interaction between staff and populace in myriad ways. So, people didn't buy GoLite gear because they had a friend at GoLite, but they sure as hell heard about GoLite multiple different ways because they had a friend at GoLite, so they'd give it a try, so they'd open their mind, and then they saw how great it was, and then they were all in, and that didn't exist anywhere else at anything like this scale. And so all the synergies that created this incredible sale experience in Boulder didn't exist in these other towns that were otherwise like us. And yet we're getting feedback and false positives. You have these evangelists that, hell, we sold more product in many different places than we did in Boulder that very first year when we had this, these pockets of early evangelists all over the place. And so that creates the belief that there's lots and lots of people behind that too out there, and it didn't exist. So
if I can stop you for a second. So when you open up stores in these new locations, the first year the sales are good, which gives you the indication that we can scale this to other places. Like, it's just a matter of tapping and finding where the oil is, and you can scale quickly. If I'm understanding correctly, the first year was not necessarily indicative of the long-term success of some
Sometimes. Sometimes that was true. Boulder was always a good store, and Silverthorne was always a good store. So Silverthorne is another example. Silverthorne, amongst outlets, that's not a good outlet. So we crushed it there. So we opened at other locations that were much better locations from that same management company, and other locations that fit some of the same parameters from one of their closest competitors, and none of those hit like Silverthorne. And so what's unique about Silverthorne for us, just like Boulder for us, and it's that there's an awful lot of people from here that go and play up there, but also there was this core amongst the populace that lived up there full-time that was exposed enough, early enough, and believed in our stuff enough and had great enough experience with it. And so often there's this crazy thing. It's like every outlet in the world, like Wednesday is not a great day, except Silverthorne. It was like their number one day all winter long. And it's because people would come to Colorado that had no business flying to altitude and skiing at altitude, and they feel awful the first couple days. And of course, every bit of marketing from Colorado hides the fact that you're going to feel like shit for half of your vacation, and you should come here for 2 weeks or not at all. And so when all these people would feel terrible by their second and third ski day, Tuesday night, people would just like put an arm around their shoulders, like, go to the outlet tomorrow, and go to GoLite. And so you had these droves of people from all over the world, let alone all over the country, who were falling into this funnel in disproportionate shares. A lot more going to the outlet than normal. A lot more, core outdoor people going to the outlet than a normal outlet, even near an outdoor destination, and being sent specifically to us, and then being drawn toward, oh, this is an authentic Colorado company, and I'm here on my Colorado vacation. And so, again, it's like that's not a reason that you're going to make the purchase, but it is a reason that your mind is open and you're receptive, and you're hearing and you're thinking, you're listening, and so you're making a rational decision that you otherwise would not have even considered. Bam, we sell the shit out of it. Let's go translate that to other places whose numbers are so demonstrably better, fall flat on your face. So, and then of course, the website was always number one store, and there's nothing quite like that. But that's not translatable to anything. Mm-hmm. It's like just crush it on your site and be glad that there is one.
So talking about 2012. Opening the first brick and mortar store. Sounds like the first year was pretty killer at Boulder, at Silverthorne. What happens in 2013 and 2014? I don't want to spoil the story for people that don't know it, but where does it go from there?
Well, we're scaling. Almost every outdoor company is either an apparel company or an equipment company. And almost every outdoor company back then was almost entirely a female company or a male company in terms of customer base. They don't look that way from the outside to the untrained eye, but the economics of being 50-50 male-female are terrible for a lot of businesses. It's much better to be able to advertise and drive all of the word of mouth and all the hoopla to one gender and really nail that. And you're just respectable to the other, to the other gender. We were, the opposite from the start. Just like we had all different ages. There was a psychographic, not a demographic. It was also like, well, we're sure as hell there's plenty of couples out there. And even if they're not romantic couples, they're hiking couples. Like, we're not gonna lighten up one gender or the other, and so and we're not gonna just do the equipment, not the apparel, and vice versa. While there's all kinds of positive synergies to how you save weight in the pack and from skin out on your body, there's also that goes hand in hand with complexities in the business. We were a far more complex business at our size than others because of the breadth of the product line. But we couldn't and didn't want to get away from that. That was the secret sauce. That was the, again, I can't remember the color of the pill, but that's the freaking pill. We're all in. We're going for it. We're going for it completely.
And can we talk about the breadth of the product line? Because obviously you have the 12 initial products.
Well, at this point we're into lots and lots and lots of variations. And no, there's not just a tarp for the summer. We have just bitch and killer 4-season tents that weigh far less than half of what their competitors weigh, and yet they're perfectly. So just in terms of design inspiration on Denali. We're in 10-pound, 3-person mountaineering tents from a terrific company in England, and it's all makes sense. But, the cook tent weighs a third of that, and we go over there and cook in it, and, the next morning, it's still standing. And the morning after that, it's still standing. And I'm just asking myself, why the fuck do I sleep here? Why don't I sleep in the cook tent and leave this thing, behind? Okay, great. Years later, now I'm designing tents. Here's a cook tent. You're going to sleep in it. And because this is the only thing we're making for winter shelters, now we can really take it to its logical conclusion. What fabric should it be made of? Let's take the vent seriously, since you're going to live in it, not just cook in it. And there's all kinds of little details around that. So in shelters, there's a 2-person version and a 3-person version and a 4-person version, a 5-person version of those basic ideas. And now that it's so damn light and so damn tough, this isn't only for winter. People want it in the summer too. Great. So here's a mesh insert for it. And we'll sell them all a cart. Oh no, and maybe it makes more sense to sell them together. And now you have these complexities. And it'd be so great to just make one color from a business standpoint, but that's exactly the wrong answer from a user standpoint. So there's definitely going to be what we called sun, which is a bright yellow, little bit of orange in it, and a wonderful green. And this is just shelters. Same thing in sleeping bags, and quilts, because there's a difference. We've got quilts, but for those who don't want a quilt, we also have the latest damn bags on the market. And I have enough integrity and enough ego and enough aggression, frankly, to just friggin' go for it. I'm like, what are all these stupid bags on the market with, here's our regular and here's our long, and here's one with a feminine name and it's the female version, and it's F all this. You know what we need here? People don't just come in different lengths. They come in different girths, and that is correlated to gender, but it really is beside the point. So, okay, here's our bags. We're going to do a 40, and we take that completely seriously. We do 40s like nobody else's business, because 40 is the right answer for most people most of the time in the outdoors. And here's 20s, and here's zeros. And you don't need negative 20s. You need to wear your damn clothes in the zeros. And you don't need negative 40s. You need to wear even more clothes and then a larger size zero. But you know what? They're not just for 6 feet and 6'6", but let's make every last one of them to 5'6" because you know what  50% of women are 5'6" and below. And why the hell should they carry the extra space? You know why women are cold in their sleeping bag? Not because not thick enough in the foot box, because it's too damn big. Okay, so now everything's coming in 3 lengths. Oh, and 3 girths, because the variation in the human body is exactly proportional in terms of girth and length. And so if you measure people around the shoulders, around the hips, you see the same bell curve with the same standard deviation relative to the mean that you do in height. And so it's just as important to get those. So every last thing comes in a trim, a regular, and a wide. And so now you've got the curse and the blessing of 9 sizes in 3 bags, and it's awesome. And if they get it, if they really get it, and if the buyers have integrity, or the people have the insight to be in, this is going to be awesome. We're going to sell a mint, and everybody's going to have a near custom fit bag at a regular price. Oh, no, even less than a regular price, because we sell direct. God bless. But for the most part, they didn't get it. And so now you're in the hell of, shit, man, we've got a lot of SKUs. We got a lot of bag SKUs. Oh, that's okay. We'll open more stores. And the more stores we open, the less we lose at each store, because we're scaling and we're learning, and we might just make it. And this year we lost this much, and this year we lost only this much, and this year we lost only this much. 2 more years of this shit, we're going to be profitable, we're going to make it, we're going to turn the corner. And we just, frankly, ran out of money about just before that. So that's what happened to GoLite. If we had a little bit more time, and or same, other side of the same coin, a bit more money, the curves suggest that it would all worked out. But we didn't, and it didn't. And you can also look back and say, over the years, here are the biggest mistakes I made or we made, and take out any two major of these mistakes, and we'd have had that money to prove it out. And but then I wouldn't have the insights I've had since then about other things that are frankly even more important. So whatever.
That's a Harvard case study right there.
Half of them are studies in what not to do.
Yeah. Fascinating. Like, you definitely, it feels like Wolf of Wall Street for a backpacking company. Like, you just were exploding in every direction.
Am I the wolf?
Yeah, definitely.
He's not a good guy.
But it's still a very fun story.
He had a good time.
Yeah.
But he's not a good guy. Okay, I'll ponder that tonight.
I'm not making any character associations. So I assume you took investor money. This is not bootstrapped.
GoLite was completely bootstrapped.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at the point where you said you ran out of money, why didn't you seek investors?
At GoLite, I never ever wanted outside investors until that last year. That last year, I spent a normal amount of time managing a company and a whole nother job and a half worth of time seeking outside capital. And after somewhat detailed conversations with literally hundreds of potential investors, finally found my guy. Absolute perfect alignment of financial capability, belief, synergy between how we were thinking and all that. And but he had made all his money the last 15 years in Russia and China. And the IRS often welcomes people home after that with a very, very careful look through and everything just to make sure everything's fine. And in the meantime, all those assets are frozen and they can't go into stuff. So literally the day after we came to an oral agreement, he couldn't do it.
Couldn't access the funds.
Yeah. And there's nothing to bitch and moan about, because I've been I was assistant to the chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission for a few years. I was a guy's right hand. I've been on the regulatory side of things. You want sound, intelligent regulation. You want good government. You want clean markets. We just, rolled snake eyes at the wrong time on that one. And those are the moments where like, what the hell did I do in a previous life to get whacked this way? But whatever, you take it as it comes. And now, MyTrail was completely different. And MyTrail, right at the end of GoLite, as GoLite was winding down, which is just a wonderful phrase to describe something that is much more violent and bloody. A law got passed in Colorado allowing direct public offerings online for the first time. And so just the timing of it, I hear voices all the time, and some of them are accurate, wonderful, and I'm convinced it's God, and sometimes it's not.
What's a direct public offering?
So direct public offering is you offering your shares in your company straight to people without going through an investment bank, an intermediary. An investment bank being an obvious example of an intermediary. So when you go to raise capital the traditional way in the capital markets, you're going to venture capital, you're going to initial public offerings that involve investment banks, and all of it is layers of gatekeepers and toll chargers. And if it isn't already obvious reading between the lines, I'm just allergic to that shit. Gives me the willies. What took me so long to figure out that it doesn't double the value of the product to have it hanging up on a hanger in your store? But I did figure out early on that I don't want to pay somebody some very significant cut of the money that you're putting into my company, our company now, for them to just introduce us and broker the deal. Screw that. I want to go straight to you. Oh, but you can't do that because there's all sorts of regulations. Well, a lot of regulations opened up, and appropriately so, allowing for direct public offerings online. And nobody had ever done one in Colorado. And so there was this opportunity to break trail. And is it going to be first mover advantage or break trail? Who knows? But here's the way I looked at it. Look, one day Kim and I, here's an aside. We were absolute leaders in dematerializing and being at the forefront of being a green company. And Kim was in charge of all that, and she ran with it and did an awesome job. But the seeds of all that was we read 9 months before Gore's book came out. Guy Flannery wrote a book called The Weathermakers. Spoiler alert, The Weathermakers is us. And we're really experiencing that now. But Kim and I are having like the only non-hiking, non-mountaineering vacation in a decade, sitting in Tuscany and reading The Weathermakers. And it's dawning on me that, oh shit. At the end, you see, all we got to do is cut our emissions by 2/3 from what we're all projected to be emitting by the year 2050, and we should keep global warming to this amount, and that's probably enough, and everything should be fine, blah, 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 blah. But I've been in Washington. I've worked at the cutting edge of stuff. That's not how anything works. You need somebody to get the average there. You need somebody, out in front, leading the way. And what industry is better positioned than the outdoor industry? The outdoor industry has to lead the way. Has to. Oh, shit. Within the outdoor industry, what's the one company that's got to lead the way? That's so obviously positioned. Shit, we're already dematerializers. We're already less is more. Both friggin' founders are tree huggers. Oh, crap. And the street cred of being Republicans now. Oh, no. It's us. We got to do this. Same thing. I'm blanking on what you just asked that I analogized over to that one.
I think we just jumped from GoLite to MyTrail.
I want to jump back. No, I want. So same thing here. Is like, I don't know if there's going to be a lot of new companies springing up with capital formation from all sorts of folks putting in $500, $1,000, and becoming owners at the start of something, right? Right at the beginning instead of much further down the line. I don't know if this is going to be common or not, but nothing's going to happen until somebody does one. And so, shit, man. I was just the chairman of the SEC. I not only have read the 40 Act and the 33 Act and the 35 Act. I'm personal friends with Louis Loss, who wrote that shit for Franklin Roosevelt. Oh, no. I got to be up all day and night actually doing this, or I'll never forgive myself for not trying, and I'll always wonder if we coulda, and I'll always wonder how many others could have followed down this trail if we'd only broken it. Okay, so here we go. So total uncharted territory of, okay, let's open up a bank account and write up an agreement and send it out to, I don't know, how about the 6-figure list of customers GoLite had? And hey, if you liked what we were doing, here's what financially was working. Here's what financially wasn't working. Very simple slide presentation. Hey, if you want to know everything stupid that we were doing, here's the full list. And I know it intimately. I did it. And I'm marvelously transparent and marvelously honest about all of it. I have no idea how valuable the brand part of it is. But we've got to rebrand because we went through a bankruptcy. From the company did, and so we have this new brand, and here's all the reasons I think the brand doesn't matter to all these people. They're all rational actors, but who really knows? We'll find out. There's all kinds of strengths in having your customers be your investors, and here's a cut of, here's a discount on all of your personal purchases, and let's see how that word of mouth should turbocharge. Here's all the obvious strengths. I'm sure we're going to find out what the holes in this are. Who's interested? And plenty of people came in and said, great, this sounds good. Let's give it a try.
So when you file for bankruptcy, what do you get to keep in that process? Do you still get to reuse the designs from GoLite?
I bought the designs from GoLite.
Okay.
So I personally bought every asset from GoLite that could be purchased and then reinvested in a new co, in MyTrail.
How is the value assessed on that?
I was the highest bidder.
I have a question. This might be dumb, but maybe not.
Yeah.
If you own the company and you don't have investors, and it's just you own the company outright, and then you're declaring bankruptcy, who are you buying the designs from? Because aren't they already yours?
No. So GoLite had 3 owners.
Oh, okay.
At the end, Kim, my mother, and me. Earlier, it had been my father, because he fed me, and when he died, he always told me that he loved me more than anybody in the whole wide world. But so why did he leave his portion to my mom? So that's bullshit. So I inherited this immunohematologist for a business partner, and that has strengths and weaknesses. My dad was a tax attorney and a CPA. That is a goddamn good partner to have. Save me 2 weeks a year. I never had any use for a freaking immunohematologist in the business. So you have these 3 owners who own a business. The business owns all the assets. So things like my car. Everybody thought of it as my car. I thought it was my car. There was a Subaru that had GoLite license plates on it that was owned by the company. And it was the smallest fleet of Subarus in the world, because they normally only sold fleets of 3, at deep discounts to branded things. And I called up Subaru and said, has anybody ever asked you for just one? And they're like, no. And I was like, well, I am. And they're like, well, we don't do that. And I was like, well, so the entire effect of your policy is to keep GoLite from having a Subaru. Is that what you want? And they're like, no. So they changed the policy, and GoLite has a Subaru. So, years and years and years later, the guys who are running the bankruptcy, they sell off all the assets, because you sell the assets so you can pay every creditor you have and make everybody as whole as possible. Just wrap things up. That's how this is done and how it should be done. I'd studied all this. I knew all this theoretically. And again, wow. To experience it now, that's something different. Among other things, like, okay, this Subaru is now for sale. What are people willing to pay for some Subaru that's 15 years old that a company has used, guess who's going to value it more than anybody in the whole world? Me. And the guys are like, I want to stay away from some of these details, but I'll tell you this one, the guys, straight, no, I won't, I don't even remember the number. Okay. So the guys, I remember the number. I'm not going to say it. The guy's like, okay, this much for the Subaru. And I was like, fuck that. I know the asshole who's been driving this thing the last 15 years. It's worth this. And I was like, this has caught air so many times. And he's like, okay, we'll do it at this. Like, done. You know, in a company bankruptcy, just everything has to be, all the T's have got to be crossed, all the I's have got to be dotted. Everything's got to be done just so, because you know, that's what's right. And there's a lot of eyes looking. But what was really interesting is when here's another experience that's like, it's wonderful to have the experience, unique experience, amazing experience. Wouldn't want to get rid of any of my experiences. On the other hand, I don't wish this experience on anybody else in the whole wide world, not even my worst. Okay, 2 or 3 enemies. But that's about it. My experience in bankruptcy court in Denver was, you know, I'm sure abnormal. All the things that have to be said and should be said and are said in open court, you know, in the right sequence, and this person this and this person that, and it all makes sense. And then when the official proceedings are all done, I find out that not only is my counsel a customer, not only are my accountants customers, the creditors committee, which is the 3 largest creditors, is how it works, you know, representing everybody that the company owes any money to, they're customers. And their finance people are customers, and the judge is a customer, and every last one of them, the quote-unquote opposing counsels and the judge are rooting for MyTrail. They're rooting for the, you know, quote-unquote rebirth of GoLite, MyTrail, because they're all fans, because they all know, okay, you know, all this stuff happens, shit happens. It was great while it lasted. Can't wait to, you know, make sure you got my email. I'm your customer. Fucking cool. All right, we'll give it a try.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so let's jump back to MyTrail Co.
Yeah.
So, direct public offering, are you able to raise as much money as your goal was?
Can we step back a second and just, like, for people who aren't familiar with it, what is it? Just
So
definition.
Yeah. So, what was MyTrail?
What is MyTrail?
Yeah. So GoLite was a company for, I don't know, 14, 15 years. And GoLite went away at the very end of 2014. Literally December 31st. Keep the accounting simple, right? And so MyTrail is an entirely, from a legal standpoint, entirely new company. Happen to have 3 owners, but not the same 3 owners. Me, my wife, and my kid. Instead of my wonderful mom.
Sorry, Mom.
And yeah, sorry, not sorry. So, and its purpose was to bring the commercially / usefully best, most desired products from the GoLite line to market in a way that would be profitable. And it was really that simple. So all sorts of extraneous products that were not core, they're not happening. Not even because we don't want them, don't like them, don't love them, but we can only do so much, you know, early on. But especially, okay, we're going to have a location in Boulder. We're going to have a location in Silverthorne, but we're not going to have and we're going to have a website. We're not going to have all these other locations. We're going to have these streamlined, you know, procedures. We're going to be only direct to customer from the very, very start. So it's like, you know, a very simplified, you know, way to think of it. Actually, no, there's an entirely accurate way. Everything that was working at GoLite and nothing that wasn't. Now let's see if we can make this business work with a new team and a new brand, and you know, and coming out fresh, because obviously it's a hell of a speed bump and a hiccup to go through in that intervening year that it takes to get all that going. So that's what MyTrail was, and the name, you know, MyTrail Company was chosen to, because it's like, what do you want people to think of as they say the name of your company? It's like, that's my trail company. Great. Hey, you want to get on the trail? Here's your trail company. And trail being absolutely central, because we weren't going to be, GoLite was a leading adventure racing company. Eventually evolved into, among other things, a leading adventure racing company, leading mountaineering company, all sorts of other things. Okay, let's get back to the trail. The trail may include mountains. The trail may include many different things in your mind, but it's really, it's about the trail, and that could be, if it's long enough, now we're through hiking, and if it's high enough, now we're mountaineering. It's certainly not a cycle company, which GoLite made plenty of cycle stuff along the way. It is a trail running company, depending on how you use and adapt stuff, but that's not the centerpiece of the focus. It's certainly not a road running company. So anyway, MyTrail Company.
How many products are you offering?
So here, it's interesting. Even though it's much more recent, these numbers aren't burned into raw memory the way. It's like remembering your first girlfriend and your first kiss versus along the way. Mm-hmm. So now I'm going to speak much more in generalities. MyTrail came out with a handful, and meaning 5 or less, shelters, both ultralight 3-season and ultralight winter mountaineering, full on. But we're talking I think there's 4. 2 sizes of 2 versions of backpack, whereas GoLite had 3 sizes of 3 versions. So, streamlined from 9 packs to 4. I don't think we didn't do quilts, because almost all of our customers wanted bags, and we gotten bags to light enough, and frankly, here's the synergy with cottage, and why reproduce. Now there's some cottage players that are making just the quilt that we would make, so screw that, let them do that, but nobody's making just the bags that we'd make, so here we go. So just 40s and 20s, not zeros until the second season when we got into the winter season, so ultimately you get into 3 of those, but as much as we ought to do 9 sizes of bags, intellectually, been there, done that. Not going to do that for another 15 years until, you got to ask me this time. And handful of just insulated parka, couple different versions, fabrics, light and medium of base layer, tech tops and bottoms, and umbrella. Interestingly enough, we're not too far above 12. 17 stands out in my mind as what I think the initial launch was.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm noticing that when you're talking about it, you're not using words like is and has, but you're speaking in past tense. You're saying was and had.
Yeah.
Why?
MyTrail doesn't exist.
How long did it? When did it stop?
5 years. MyTrail started in 2015 and ran out of money at the end of 2019.
Interesting, because there's still an active website, so it's still something, right?
No. If you see anything whatsoever online, it's because when you wind up something, it's very interesting who claims that you owe what, when and how and why, right? So for instance, if you look at the list of creditors that GoLite had at the end of GoLite, half the money was owed to landlords. That's all bullshit. That's all made up projections over how long we think your store would stay in our location, and it's formulaic, and there's a way that they write it all up, and there's no penalty to the to the landlord to write up all that stuff and put it all out there, and they put in their claim. And in case there's a few $1,000,000 at the end distributed out there, they want their claim to be the biggest, so when they get their share of the pie, they get the biggest number they can get. But that's not real in any way, shape, or form. There are some that are at the absolute opposite extreme. We get delivered this shipment of shelters, and 60 days later we pay for it, and 4 months later we get another shipment, and 60 days after that we pay for it, blah, 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 blah. And then one turn of the wheel, later, we don't have any money. And so we actually do, owe this shelter company this money, and we don't have it. And frankly, that's what bankruptcy is. That's why it exists. Fair settlement, best possible settlement of this situation. So, MyTrail, any company now, I'm sure it's the same for you guys. You have little monthly payments to various, I don't want to name any names, but various online companies. And when you get to the point that you're done and you can't pay for the next month, and you're not going to pay for the next month, and it's not right to pay for the next month, even if it's only $70 to this company, and they say, you owe $70 for this next month, they're like, sorry, we don't even exist. Point number one. Point number two, I don't have the $70. Point number three, yeah, I do have $70 in my personal pocket, and I could put it in this business, but I'm not going to put it in this business. And if I did put it into this business, you know what? It doesn't go to you to supply my web services next month that I can't use. It goes to the shelter manufacturer that we couldn't pay for that last round of shelters they sent us 2 months ago. That's not your money. Well, then we're just going to leave this up, and you're going to look like shit. Like, okay. Because an awful lot of people, I don't know, maybe the vast majority say, oh, well, for only, $450 in this and this and this, I don't have to look like shit. Well, homie, don't play that. There's a right way to, wind things up, and there's a right way to allocate the resources, and a fair way to whatever there is to send out, you send out. And so, yeah, there's some traces out there that, no, I'm not paying to make them go away. And because every 18 months the cost of information online gets cut in half, maybe they never go away.
So they're trying to extort you to an extent by the
bastardizing the website. They forgot all about this, and whoever was extort's not the wrong word. It's a strong word, but it's just a normal business. Like, you owe so and so. I was like, oh, I better pay that. It's just, and if it works, then I would never do it that way, but there are entities that operate that way, and they get rewarded for it. So why the hell wouldn't they keep doing it? So they do it.
Yeah.
And then it's nobody's job to come back around 4 years later, 5 years later, and say, oh, we better clean all this up. There's no clean it up. This is junk. There's ghosts in the machine forever online. So no, MyTrail has not existed, does not exist, has not existed since the end of 2019. But yeah, I'm not surprised that if you go searching for it, you'll find something.
Follow-up
question. If you search, I was curious about the dimensions of a particular tent that I designed many years ago, and so I looked it up online, and it's available from several different retailers. Except, of course, it's not. It's out of stock. But literally, it's like, this is 2 companies ago. This is 15 years ago, and the thing still exists. It just shows out of stock.
Huh. If MyTrails took everything that worked in GoLite and none of the things that didn't work, why didn't MyTrails work?
Because the things that... So first off, the brand turns out to be every bit as important as some people really thought. And I didn't think, and certainly hoped wasn't the case. Nope, turns out there's a lot of people out there that loved GoLite. Well, I'm GoLite. Like, no, I love GoLite. But these are the GoLite products. No, I love GoLite products. And on the one hand, if you know it like I know it, intimately like I know it, it's irrational. On the other hand, oh, shut the fuck up, dude. You had your wife and some other really wonderful people bust their buns to really engage customers for years and years and years and years, and ethically and effectively and honestly get them to love this brand and all it stands for. So cry me a river that you don't understand why they can't just pick up and transfer it lock, stock, and barrel over to this other thing. Some people did, small minority. Second, huge drag compared to what I planned and hoped is that our investor base, I expected to be, assume is way too strong a word, but planned on being a very active customer base. Like we'll sell the first production runs just to them. We'll sell the second production runs to all the people that they talk us up to. And that didn't happen to anywhere near the degree that that we'd planned. And we had, for the most part, we had big fan investors, but passive. And there's nothing wrong with that. I've been a passive investor many times. What the hell is that? That's like buying Johnson & Johnson stock and never using the baby shampoo once I was no longer a baby, like ever. Versus buying Cincinnati Microwave stock when they only have one product, a Fuzzbuster, and I drive very, very, very fast. And I depend on that to stay out of jail every week in my youth, right? And I expected, planned on, articulated, put in slides, quantitized the degree to which we expected the customer base to be like that, and incented them to be like that, like a significant discount on all purchases right from the start, so that they're literally paid to buy the products that they already believed in and liked, and spread the gospel far and wide. And we even had a very small number of investors that were flat out like had not been GoLite customers. They just heard about this nifty direct public offering. Oh, this sounds cool, and that's what they believed in. And then as soon as things didn't pan out just as they expected, they and again we're talking very few, but it doesn't take many to move a needle in a small group like this. Turned into drags. Instead of like dude, we're all in this together. Like, promote, help. Like, okay, you don't get this. Okay, this isn't gonna work. This is not gonna work.
Did they earn a dividend or anything like that?
Yeah. So there was a dividend that we paid the first year, and the second year it did not make sense to pay the dividend because we were not profitable. And so if you pay a dividend when you're not profitable and you're taking that cash from the next round of investors, there's an Italian word for that. It starts with a P, right? And you can't get into doing anything like a Ponzi scheme. And the thing is, I stayed way away from anything in those gray areas because there's frankly a lot of shit that people can pull on the margins in this stuff, but not when you were assistant to the chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission for a couple of years. I get the book thrown at me. I can't claim ignorance on anything. It's like No. Okay. But then some people, it's very interesting. I got, two kinds of communication right after that. Plenty of folks that had started businesses and run businesses said, good for you. You're doing exactly what you should be doing. Rooting for you, believing in you, wishing you luck. And then other people like, where's my fucking dividend? I hate you. It's like, okay, I can't have you do that. I totally understand where you're coming from. But what I need you to do is say, how can I help you sell 5 jackets this week? Because then we'll not only help people lighten up and enjoy the outdoors more, but we'll actually make money together. Too bad, so sad. Got to meet people where they are, and that's where they were. And so that was the first direct public offering in Colorado. And I don't know that there's been another online direct public offering since, because we broke that trail and it turned out to be too deep for others to follow.
How much of this was you also kind of inadvertently being a victim of your own success, in that the cottage industry is very different in 2015 through 2019 as opposed to when you got started? It didn't exist.
Yeah.
Like the brands that are available in 2015, you got the Z-Packs, Gossamer Gear, like Hyperlight.
Short story is, I don't know. I'm just not intimate with what's going on and all that. I am more now because I have a little more time now. Back then I couldn't begin to answer that question. I can answer a parallel question. We opened a store in Silverthorne, and we had made so much in Silverthorne and done so well at GoLite, and now we didn't. Like, what the hell is the difference? What's going on now? Even disproportionate with every other factor I've talked about. Well, REI opened up a few blocks from Silverthorne, and yeah, I knew that. I noticed that. I didn't expect that to make much difference. Well, it turns out some of those sales in Silverthorne were just because we were the only real outdoor shop in Silverthorne. And now we weren't. And so it would not. I answer you that way because I would expect that what you're getting after is significant. Just like we lost sales in Silverthorne to REI, I expect we probably did lose lots of sales to quote unquote, cottage industry. I wasn't intimate enough with it to put my finger on and say, yeah, I can tell you which products and how much and that. No, I had no idea.
Sure. Yeah, and obviously you're spot on with the challenge of trying to transfer the brand equity from GoLite to the new company, because there's a reason why Nike spends billions of dollars of enforcing anything that looks remotely like their check mark. Like, that has a ton of value.
Yep.
It's interesting to me how kind of, I wouldn't say unemotionally you're able to talk about this, but objective, you're able to view the, can I say, failing or lack of success with MyTrail Company?
There's success and failures. Look, we really, if you boil it down, we set out to do 2 things at GoLite, and then by extension at MyTrail. We wanted to help the outdoor folk lighten up and enjoy the outdoors much, much more, and transform this friggin' moribund shit for brains industry, and get paid a fair return for doing it. 1 for 1. 1 out of 2. First one accomplished in spades, great. I'm going to heaven. Second one, not so much. Still working on it. So, and then, there's a reason I'm here and Kim's not. She'll never is a long time. She is not yet over the emotional scar tissue. I'm just quite different. I'm at the polar opposite. First trade show where we displayed back in '99. We had an outside magazine writer with us. He was attached to the hip because he wrote a 7,000 word profile on. It's called Wonk on the Wild Side. It was all about the transition from helping balance the budget of the United States government to launching a freaking outdoor company. And in his words, I asked him at one point, like, why does outside think this is all going to work? And he's like, oh, outside has no idea if this is going to work or not. You're just you're the skier on the fresh slope, and the powder's amazing, and the turns could be great, or you could trigger an avalanche. Either way, this is worth watching. And he asked straight up. Then he was primarily a financial reporter. Mike Steer, really insightful writer, and he asked one time, really offhandedly, obviously wanted me relaxed when he popped this question in the midst of it all. I was like, so what's not a good what's a good trade show look like? And I told him, and he's like, what's not a good trade show look like? And I said, no sales. And he's like, well, not no sales. What do you mean? I was like, no sales. And he's like, well, there's going to be some sales. I was like, no, there might not be any sales. We might have spent the last year doing all this and putting all this money in and getting this booth together and coming out to Salt Lake City and building all these products, and there might not be anybody tomorrow that gives a shit. We might have no sales. He's like, it's very interesting that you understand that, because I write about people all the time, and like almost nobody understands that the floor is zero. And there really are plenty of times when you do all this work and there's zero. And it's like, oh yeah, it could be zero. It could be great. It could be anything in between. But yeah, zero comes up.
Yeah.
There's no zero on the dice, but there are in life. So anyway, here we are 15, 20 years later. It's like, insights notwithstanding, just taking those experiences for what they were, and certainly all the investors and certainly all the customers, I wish we still were running GoLite, let alone MyTrail, and I wish it was enormous, and so many of the really wonderful people that I got to work with and employ there were still there, and but on the other hand, I've always been acutely aware that from day one, we might have not sold anything, and not 5 continents, no continents, no dealers, no direct, no nothing, and that's that. And that would have been a hell of a lot less painful, but also a hell of a lot less useful to society and psychically rewarding. And so, I mean, when you understand all that, then that's the perspective. And if you can't, and here's another way I look at it. I help teach entrepreneurship in various capacities on the side, and I tell people flat out, most businesses fail, defined as most businesses do not exist 5 years after they're founded, and if you can't make peace with that, then don't do it. And if you claim to have made peace with that, then be at peace with that. And when somebody says some nasty shit about you that doesn't know anything from anything, has never built anything in their lives, fine. There might be a kernel of truth in what they have to say, and you look in the mirror and learn something. And go look at the other, communication you got the day before from somebody who actually did build something and says, hey, good for you. Way to go. Way to try. You do this and you run it for this long and you make this many people happy. That's success. Sorry you don't have, big coin from it. Better luck next time.
You'd hinted a couple times, I think, that you've got something up your sleeve currently. I have something, frankly, far more important than GoLite. Maybe potentially more important than balancing the budget. That's hard to say. That's because it's not a public policy thing. But yeah, I have something that if people do it just the way I will teach them to do it,
I don't know that they'll get to 36, but they can, I believe, live longer and stronger and be healthier and happier. And it's not the least bit gimmicky. It's totally grounded in science. It's totally grounded in my own experience. In a way, I've been developing it for roughly 40 years. And in a way, intensively, I've been developing it for the past 4 or 5 years. Once I was free of the burdens of trying to run a profitable business. And, the first company I launched, GoLite, it was, less than a year from concept to delivered products at a fairly large scale. Now, what I'm going to be launching is far simpler, but I'm taking much more time to do it. Part of that is because I'm older and I sleep more. Part of it is because I have a 14-year-old and I'm a damn good assistant baseball coach. Part of it is because I still watch movies with my wife that I would never watch on my own. But mostly, one of the most profound lessons I take from my own personal experience with GoLite is, when I look back and say, I don't want to be uncharitable and say this was dumb, but in the category of if I had it to do over again, if we had the product line of year 4 or 5, year 1, lights out. We'd be kicking ass today. And so I was utterly determined. I was ready to launch 4 years ago what I would like to launch this year. But I sat with it and wrestled with it and honed it and worked on it because I said, I do not want to launch the year 1 product line and grow. I want to figure out on my own, for as long as my wife will put up with it, I'm going to figure this shit out. I'm going to game out everything. I'm going to be my own worst critic over and over and over. I'm going to live with this. I'm going to sleep with this. I'm going to wrestle with this. And when it launches, it's going to be the equivalent of the GoLite Jam, not the GoLite Breeze. The equivalent of the Shangri-La, not the Cave, etc., etc., etc. And we are going to nail it from the start. And nobody's going to wonder, well, when you really flesh this out properly, what's it going to become? No, this is it, pal. And here it is, explained every which way, backwards and forward, in print, online, in video, intellectually protected by trademark as opposed to patents so that it lasts 99 years. And that is a way that I can get paid. It's also a way to, every bit as important as that, is maintain the rigor and intellectual integrity of the whole thing so it doesn't get watered down and bastardized in ways that many things at GoLite were. And MyTrail didn't have as much time to get watered down.
What is it?
It's a very precise, very specific way to exercise that is more effective than anything else that exists and ever has existed.
Is it physical or mental? Like, is it a physical object or is it like a mental, like, methodology?
It's physical.
Interesting. How big is it?
It's not a thing.
It's like a training regimen.
Yeah. It's exactly what to do and how and why and with what. And I wrote 5 books about it already. The books and the video and the website all go up together because, interestingly, if you protect something, if you put something out in print, it's protected in print. If you put something out in video, it's protected in video. If you put something out in both simultaneously, then it's protected in all forms. And that's what I want. I want global protection for every detail of every aspect of the concepts. And it's there's no shortcuts. It's it won't be for everybody. I mean, it is for everybody, but not everybody. But it is for everybody. All the right people will be in, and we'll see. But it also won't have, unlike GoLite, it will not have a huge sprawling expense base from the start. And so if nobody wants it, it's cool. I'm going to live a long time because of it already. It's already paid off, for me. And that's that's another part of living with it in great detail for 5 years and refining and honing. And I mean, I did it today. Actually, the truth is I did 2/3 of it today, and I'm going to do the rest as soon as I get home. And it's awesome.
Very cryptic.
I'm definitely intrigued, heavily intrigued. I hope we get maybe another hint off air.
Yeah.
But do you have a anticipated?
Yeah, and frankly, I don't want to be cagey or cute or coy. I just simply, there's two reasons I won't go into any detail beyond what I've just said. And one is the intellectual protection of all of it. My wife knows all of it. My kid knows all of it. The end.
But not your mom.
My mom doesn't. She's not alive anymore. But there will be. But you'll see pictures of her because she did it.
Okay.
And she lived to 99, which is as long as she wanted. She didn't want to go to 100. 100's common in her family. She's like, I'm not interested. So, but no, she did it, and it was all good. But the other thing is, I don't discuss it with my wife, and I don't discuss it with my kid at all. My wife has edited the text. She's reviewed the text. My kid's been put through the program, but we don't talk about it because I find in writing, I don't ever want to. I remember every single sentence everywhere out of roughly 200,000 words, and I'll wake up in the middle of the night and say, ooh, and I'll go right to the chapter of Just the Right Book and change a sentence. I can't do that if I've been talking about it with anybody because I don't remember what I talked about and what I wrote. There's only one intimate communication relationship, and that's with Microsoft Word.
It's a very Fight Club.
Yeah. I hope you've got it backed up on the cloud.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, definitely very intrigued. Do you have a goal launch date?
This year.
We'll have to do a follow-up one of these. Afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, let us know. We'll be happy to help get the word out about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
And we will end with this. Speaking of businesses, sponsor obligations, this is the Stay Salty question presented by LMNT. Use our URL, drinklmnt.com/trek. What is your hottest take?
I'm going to be drinking some Element in the wilderness this year.
We've got plenty for you if you want some additional.
Oh, I might take one of several different flavors to try because I've theorized exactly what I want. No, it only takes one to know.
What is your hottest take in the world of backpacking or the outdoors at large? You're the perfect person for this because you love outside the box.
Well, yeah.
Hiking naked.
Yeah, I don't want to be a dick now, but I have 2 trips planned that I would like to do this year. Well, one this year and one would start this year. And they are part and parcel with a launch because they're a demonstration of the fitness that comes from what I've come up with. And I would like them to be the hottest take. Now, to be less self-centered and observe what's going on in the rest of the market, I can only tell you something that is very, I don't think it's of global import. It's of personal import. One of the things that I'm wrestling with is the perfect winter shelter for a trip that would take the entire winter solo. And mainly because of that duration, exposed me to extreme weather multiple times. And the absolute perfect shelter, I'm convinced, is the GoLite Shangri-La 3. And God damn it, I didn't keep one. And I can't find one. And but my second choice is a GoLite Shangri-La 5, which I do have in a particular fabric that I really, really love. But I'm also drawn to a Hilleberg Black Label Solo. I assume you're familiar with it. And that friggin' thing weighs twice as much for a third the space. And I find myself watching video after video of it, because I know the Hillebergs. I know Bo and I know Petra, and I especially know Bo's integrity as designer. Goddamn, it is what they say it is. And I've never ever had a reason to use one of their products, because they weigh as much. That damn tent weighs as much as everything I carry in the summertime. But in the winter, with my life on the line, and what I find myself drawn to is, because of the nature of the trip, I almost certainly will buy that product and take them both, and possibly never take that one out of its package. Wow, a 7-pound security blanket? Have you lost your mind? Maybe. On the other hand, on just the right night and just the right conditions, that shit might save my life, which is of some value to me. So yeah, I have this, I'm infatuated with a red Hilleberg Solo Black Label, and I can't get it out of my mind.
Why not just use that?
It is far more prone to condensation than the GoLite Shangri-La 5 in Epic fabric that I have, and Epic being breathable fabric. And not only that, there are conditions over an entire, on an 88-night trip, that could fail. And that can wear down. And condensation is a big, big, big deal if it's night after night after night and moving camp every single day and soaking the shit down. I might take 2 down sleeping bags. Wow, this just gets insane. And so while I would never take a second toothbrush on an 88-day trip, though I wouldn't shave it down either, and I wouldn't have a single meter of floss to spare at the end of such a trip, I find myself contemplating taking 2/10 of 10 pounds total on this freaking trip, because it's the right answer for the breadth of experiences and the total punishment and damage that can be delivered to either or both of these shelters. Okay, I also have a GoLite Shangri-La 2 packed, and it just might be 3 freaking shelters, but that's my limit.
Well, I think that's the perfect way to end an interview on the subject of going light.
Yep.
Coop, this has been fascinating. You are the most interesting man in the world. Shout out to Andrew Skirka for connecting the dots here. Your best intern of all time.
Pasquale Scaturo is the most interesting man in the world. but I'm glad to be mentioned.
Yeah. Coop, thank you so much for joining us here on Backpacker Radio.
Thank you.
To the Trek propaganda portion of today's show. This has been a reoccurring subject on the podcast of late. It seems like we're at a tipping point where this is just going to be a full-fledged thing. But the title of this one is, Could This 2-Ounce Device Replace Your Garmin InReach? This is by Katie Jackson. And shout out to Katie, who actually sourced this article herself. HMD Global, known for Nokia phones, has introduced the Off-Grid Satellite Hotspot, a 2.1-ounce device unveiled at this year's CES. Designed for hikers and outdoor enthusiasts, the Off-Grid enables text messages, live location sharing, and emergency SOS via satellite networks, connecting to smartphones through its app. Priced at $199 with subscription plans starting at $15 per month, it offers a lightweight and cost-effective alternative to traditional satellite communicators like the Garmin InReach and Spot devices. Again, it just seems like a matter of time before these heavy, bulky, expensive ancillary devices are a thing of the past, and this could be another step or solution. So
I feel like we're in an in-between where there's a lot of like new options, but nothing that's like super taken over.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's my vocal tick. I mean, the the satellite communication feature through iPhone was unveiled late last year. So I'm curious to see if that becomes mainstream this year.
Right.
I could see something like this being something that fills the gap for, let's say, a year. But in my opinion, it just seems like eventually it's going to be your phone.
Yeah.
Would you feel comfortable just using your phone and not having some sort of backup?
I mean, being as I don't have anything currently, that is what I do.
Your Zoleo.
Oh yeah, I have a Zoleo. Oh my God, I'm an idiot. I was just looking at the list on the article, and I was like, I don't have that one or that one. I do have a Zoleo. You're right.
You do have a Zoleo, yeah.
That thing is cool. Yeah, I mean, I go on plenty of things without the Zoleo.
Yeah.
The Zoleo, like, I used to test because they were an advertiser, and I love it, and I love having it, but I didn't bring it on other things prior to having it.
Did you not have it on the Foothills Trail? I'm assuming your solo hikes, you've got some sort of satellite communication, right?
No. The Foothills Trail, I think that was pre-Zoleo. I had a dog.
Oh, Zoleo. You definitely had a Zoleo at that point.
Then maybe I did bring it. If I had it, I brought it.
Yeah,
I just don't remember if I had it.
Sure.
I've got a really bad memory.
Yeah, good.
I would consider using something. It's just like the act of buying it and setting it up and device plans, like that's kind of overwhelming for me. But if I were to do something risque without having a person hiking with me that had one, like some of the things that I do where I don't have one, like when I did the Ozark Highlands Trail, I didn't have the Zoleo. Mims had her Spot or her Garmin.
You're with someone who has a satellite
right, and it's like, okay, if I don't show up at dinner, like you're gonna know why, and eventually you'll push the button.
Yeah.
So there's a sense of relief around that. And now it's like, okay, I have the Zoleo, so I'll use that. And if the phone thing ends up working and there's an SOS on the phone, I'd probably try that out.
Yeah.
I mean, this will age poorly if I die somewhere.
Yeah.
And didn't call for help.
No, I mean, I think I agree with where you're getting at. This is just depends on the level of risk.
Yeah.
First and foremost, if you're with a group, there needs to be at least one of these per group.
Here's the
one
thing,
satellite
too.
communication option.
I'm like also a very risk adverse person. You know, like I'm not going out and doing super sketchy stuff.
Yeah.
And I know things can happen to anyone anywhere, but I think I limit the amount of times that I would maybe super need one. I do trails that other people are around for. I hike with people that have them. I don't know. I'm like digging myself a hole here, but I think I'm fine. Play this at my funeral if I'm not.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think because the JMT's on my short list of things to do. If I was doing the JMT solo, I would want, I think, a dedicated device. I mean, I know it's a fairly busy trail, but it's also like that's very remote stuff.
Yeah, but there wasn't really anything sketchy on it.
No, but you're just way out there. And shit happens. Like you take a bad step and break an ankle.
Yeah, but it's the JMT. How many people hike that? Like you can't even get a permit. So many people hike it.
That's what I'm saying.
But. You know, I'm not advocating people don't bring GPSs or sat navs. I think everyone should.
This is going to age poorly.
Operate
for
to your own comfort level.
First, we started off with the Bills Super Bowl, and now we've got
God,
not using satellite communicators.
It's a great day to be me on the podcast.
All right, question of the day. What is a satisfactory number of steps for you in your average day? Do you track steps? You have an Apple Watch, right?
I do not track steps. I have an Apple Watch. I haven't plugged it in to charge in about a year. It's just really big on my wrists, and I don't like it telling me every time someone sends me a text or every notification. But then what's the point? So I can like check the time?
Well, that's a big feature of a watch. That's a nice one.
Yeah.
I can make phone calls from it. Honestly, the feature that I probably use the most is pinging my phone when I can't find it, which is often.
My phone's in my pocket all the time. I oftentimes will take off my Apple Watch to take a shower, and then I never put it back on.
Yeah.
So I get some good runs with it. And I do appreciate that it tracks like steps and things, but no, I don't wear it often. And my phone will track my steps so long as I have it on my person,
Yeah.
which is great. I think a satisfactory number of steps for an average day is 10,000. That's what the people say. That's roughly 4 miles in me steps. But do I get that a day? No. And I sometimes don't like to track my steps a day because then I send myself into a spiral of how I'm not doing enough and like can obsess over it. And that's not good. Like I had one of my exes took a video of me like jogging in place in his room one night because I didn't hit 10,000 yet.
Sure.
You know, like I got obsessive and that wasn't good. But I think I'm doing a lot of things like all my free time right now is the Mile by Mile project. And that's all reading books and typing notes. And all of that activity is sitting. And I'm making a lot of progress on it, but I'm also sitting a lot. And I don't need a phone or an app to tell me that I got 2,000 steps in the day and make me feel like an unhealthy piece of shit when I'm working really hard for something that I am passionate about. So I just don't check because it does nothing but upset me. And I know I'm not getting 10,000, so we'll just leave it there. But that is what I think is a satisfactory number.
Yeah. So what is satisfactory is not necessarily what is expected.
No. I think at the end of a year, I balance out to like a higher than daily average for my typical day because when you throw in the little hikes I'll do here and there.
Wait,
like
say that sentence again.
Like, okay, if I look
when
at
you
my
average out the year, you're higher than average?
No, I'm higher than like what my day-to-day would be at a desk.
Oh, yeah, because you have
because
outliers.
I'll toss in the outlier surprise exercises of hikes.
Yeah.
So that balances it a bit. And I can still go out and do like a 20-mile day and be fine. So I know I'm still in shape-ish. But I just don't need that stress every day of trying to complete a circle. Oh my God, and you can add your friends on them. And then you see that they've completed their circles by 6 a.m. because they're all morning people. And you're sitting there. And then they can see that you've had how many steps?
Yeah.
I can't do it.
Yeah.
I'm remembering why I took the watch off. And I remember I added the friends. And that was really not fun.
I agree with you about the competition thing, if that's going to add more stress than is necessary, because I think competing against somebody else, unless you're actually trying to strive for a competition, it can be counterproductive. But I'm actually very in favor of having like some daily goal and tracking it, because like if I am at a point where I'm at 3,000 or 4,000 steps on the day, for me, it's more important to like move my body than pretty much anything else that I could be doing.
See, I know that should be the case.
Yeah.
I know, like you say that, and I'm like, yeah, that's so smart.
I'm not gonna. You do you, girlfriend.
I just, no, I don't like it.
Yeah. No, and especially the older I get, the more I'm like, could I trade 30 minutes of sending emails for just going and strolling around outside? And that's now a trade that I am very happy to make. There's a point in my life where that was not the case, but yeah.
I should put it back on.
I mean, there's trade-offs with everything, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say for me, I have two different satisfactory numbers. Winter, 10,000. Anything non-winter is 12,000. Basically, after daylight savings switches over and I get that extra hour of daylight, I'm at 12,000 is like I can rest my mind.
So your off-season burner months are my things I'm not obtaining.
Well, so I do try to find ways to multitask. So like if I ever have a work call where it's not video, I'm always walking. Like anything that I can do even at home, like when I'm with the kids, I'll just like pace around holding the kids. They like it. It's more activity for them. So like I'm finding ways to integrate walking to things where I might not be otherwise, because I do tend to be neurotic with this stuff though.
Yeah. Yeah, ask me again in July. Winter is just, I don't like being cold.
Yeah.
And I have to go outside to get a lot of steps in, and it's high. The chances are higher in the summer. I don't like to be cold.
The winter step count is definitely
Yeah.
way higher or way harder and a lower number for me, for sure.
Yeah.
Cool.
This episode's going well for me.
Polly, please clip that. Okay. Here's an easy one that you can't fuck up. Here's the triple crown of the best smells. This has to be you, right? Is this just a generic? Is this a Rachel?
Let's see. Best smells. Search. Okay, how about best smells? No, this is you.
Are you serious?
August 14th, 2024. Triple Crown Barrage incoming.
Oh.
Worst fashion trends, internet memes, best smells, reoccurring dream themes, genie wishes, guilty
memes.
pleasure songs.
We should do memes.
Well, I prepared for best smells, so.
Yeah. Not right now. I'm just saying in general.
Cool.
Because I recently rediscovered the Trump, I'm going to come. That makes me laugh every time. Do not come.
Okay. My first one, I'm going to take the low-hanging fruit, aka the only one on my list that you might grab.
Hold on. It's all right. I can't say it.
Play it.
Do not come. Do not come. I'm gonna come.
All right.
That's our segment on politics.
Yep.
Best smells. Okay. My first one is during the last half mile of your day, like on a long hike.
Yeah.
You're in the last half mile stretch. You know your campsite's approaching, and you start to smell like campfire.
A home base campfire is especially rewarding.
And you didn't have to make it.
Yeah.
It's already going when you get there.
Sure. That
And
feels
you
like
know that.
specifically an AT
The
smell.
second you smell it, you know it. You're
Yeah.
like, oh, there's a campfire at camp, and I didn't have to light it, and I'm going to get there and just drop my stuff and set up my tent and be warm.
Yeah. Love that.
Love that smell.
For my first pick, I'm going to go with my real number one. It's bacon. How is it not bacon?
I don't know. Bacon's a great smell.
Cooking bacon is like, my wife is basically a vegetarian, and like she gets excited when bacon is cooking.
You ever make oven bacon?
Yeah.
Oven
I like
bacon
it because it's the
rocks.
most hands off.
Yeah.
You're less likely to spill grease on yourself.
Yeah.
Just the weekend, waking up, the smell of bacon. Fuck yeah, all day. Okay. This will be very easy to just do a bunch of food ones, so I'm going to try and...
I had one. I'll piggyback yours because this is just, I'm not going to use it now, but
Yeah.
I had like the smell of food when you open the door. Like you're getting home from something and you
Sure.
open the door and you smell food.
Yeah.
That'll clump in with bacon.
This one might be controversial. No, I'll do a natural one. This is a backpacking podcast. Just fresh pine mountain air.
Okay, I'll take off pine candles.
Yeah. Candles. Yeah, no. There's something about a very dense pine forest where it's
Yeah.
just like breathing feels good, it smells good. It's just pleasing to every single sense.
Mhm.
And like that is nirvana.
I feel like North California has a very distinctive pine smell
Sure.
that I love. And I've also got a pine candle currently that my mom sent me that smells really good.
The candles at that little gift shop place are next level. Very nice.
Oh, the one she got us from the MPT?
There was also another one.
I have to sneeze.
There was like a 5-layer candle. Like every layer was a different color.
From where?
I don't remember the place. It was.
And I know about
It
it?
was. Yeah. It's. Why am I blanking on the town? Where your parents live?
Oh, Northville.
Northville. Thank you.
Was this a candle that we used while I was there?
No, this is one I bought for Jenna from one of the 3 stores that I went
Oh,
to.
okay. Well, let's narrow it down. Was it the Adirondack shop?
It was the smallest one.
The flower store?
It was more of like a art store than anything else.
The flower store is across from the grocery store.
I don't think it was that.
The Adirondack shop,
Some like middle-aged lady owns it.
does she have a British accent?
I think so.
Then that would be the Adirondack store.
Okay.
That one, like, it's got some steps you walk into. They sell some furniture. It looks like the second floor is like someone else's home.
I don't remember a second floor.
There's like stairs.
Anyways.
Okay. It might have been the flower shop if that's the case. But she wouldn't have had a British accent. The British accent girl's at the Adirondack store.
Very clearly, I don't remember much.
We're narrowing down 2 stores here.
Yeah.
Great. My next one is, which one am I going to pick? Lavender. Very calming.
Candle or flower?
All forms.
Okay.
Any form of lavender. Stick my nose right up to it. Calm down.
Are you a lavender laundry detergent person?
Sure.
Like, how far does your lavender obsession go? Because Jenna went through a phase where literally everything was lavender for a while.
It's more...
I think we had lavender dryer sheets.
Yeah, no, it's not like that. See, I don't smell it too often in scented forms because we are more of like a pine candle house. Garrett's a very like sandalwood, amber type of scent guy. Not very much a lavender scented person, but I like it for like wind down, sleepy time, calm down activities. So you might find it in a shower steamer in a shower I'm having, or like a little bath bomb, or like any lavender flavored anything. A lavender tea, like a lavender honey tea, smells great, tastes great, feels great. So kind of like that, like a little pillow mist. Those will be the lavender finds.
Okay.
And then my last one is going to be those roasted nuts in New York City. You know those places where they sell those roasted nuts on the side of the streets? And they smell delicious.
Like the sweet nuts.
Yeah.
Candied nuts.
Love them.
Yeah.
Love them.
That's good.
Love the smell sometimes more than even the taste. Because I really only want that outside coating. I don't actually care about the nut.
Yeah.
I just want that like deep fried, seasoned whatever the outside is, and then the inside can go away. But the smell of it is to die for.
Yeah. No, that actually triggered me. You saying something that you like the smell of it better than the taste. I'll save it as an honorable mention, I think.
Candles.
Agree to disagree. I think candles are delicious. My last one, if I'm just going to speak honestly about it, it has to be just cooking with aromatics, specifically onion and garlic.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one.
And it doesn't matter what the dish is. Once you start cooking with onion and garlic, the whole house is happy.
And then everyone compliments what you're cooking. And you're like, I haven't even started.
Like, legitimately, this is 2 ingredients.
Yeah.
It smells amazing.
Great.
Okay, honorable mentions. My honorable mention is at the mall, Aunt Annie's. Or even, I guess, at airport.
You know, I almost put the Great American Cookie Factory
Sure.
at the mall that you get, and I almost put Cinnabon. So
Cinnabon,
that all falls in the
I was
same.
going back and forth between Cinnabon and Annie's.
Both
I
great
don't
smells.
even love, like, I can have a couple of bites with either of those and feel satisfied. Like, I'm not crazy about it, but there's something about the smell that hooks you.
Yeah.
I think Subway has that sense about it too, is like whatever yoga bread smell they're putting out, there's something enticing about it. The food is whatever.
Yeah, I just want the center of the Cinnabon roll. I want to put a little fork in, grab out that center bit, eat it, and then push the outside away.
They should just do an entire restaurant dedicated to the center bit.
No, because then the center bits would start to be a little hard because they would be exposed to air.
Well, but like freshly extracted.
And then what, waste the rest?
Yeah.
Perfect. Let me know when it opens. My honorable mention, crisp fall mornings. Like a little crisp fall.
Fall is very
you
good.
step outside, the leaves crackle.
Yep.
And you get that. Ooh.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with weed smoke. And this is somebody that doesn't like smoking weed. But I do love the smell of weed smoke.
Okay.
It's a weird one. Like, I don't even have the positive association with it that like someone would have with coffee. I love the smell of coffee. Taste is whatever, but like I've learned that coffee is what makes my brain function.
Yeah.
Weed smoke does nothing for me.
Interesting.
I mean, I shouldn't say that. It doesn't do anything that I like.
I've got thunderstorm rain.
Yep.
Like the fresh thunderstorm. It's about to be fun to watch the sky type of vibe rain smell.
Yep.
Where you're just like, ooh, it's coming. That one's a great one.
This one might be controversial. Puppy breath.
That is, Harper's breath smells like a 1-star fish fry. Like it is old fish that are dead by the side of the lake.
Yeah, Harper is a very good dog, but doesn't have puppy breath. Puppy breath's like
terrible breath.
Like 2 or 3 months tops, and then they get dog breath.
Yeah.
Dog breath is bad.
What does puppy breath smell like?
Oh, puppy breath is its own brand of thing. Like
how many puppies have breathed on you?
A lot.
Really?
If you smell a puppy, they all have the same breath. Yeah.
I need to find a
It's like
puppy
that
to
new
smell.
car smell, that new dog smell is a brand for sure.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I need to smell a puppy.
Yeah.
I guess I need to get a puppy.
And that's definitely an association thing because, if you don't know that it's coming from the cutest creature alive, you're not going to seek it out. But you see that face and you get that smell and you're like, all the good things are happening right now.
You're making me want to find a puppy and hug it. That's all my honorable mentions. I could just go into other scents, but it's going to be like peonies and flowers.
No, I think that's good. Sweet. We did it.
Cool.
Mailbag.
Oh. Hey, all you fabulously filthy folk. I am so happy that this awesome entertainment exists for my ear holes. I have been an out-of-order listener since late 2019, and once upon a time, co-guest with some spicy chicken wings. But despite difficulties recalling my exact favorite episodes, there are so many of them, I'm fairly certain this is my most played podcast by airtime. Binging back content is one of my favorite ways to keep my perspective refreshed on long-distance trails, particularly when the months and miles seem to be dragging. I am currently on the second leg of my Feral Girl Summer escapades, which essentially has turned into a CDT-adjacent shoulder season solo adventure. This has given me an extraordinary amount of pondering time, which has led to what I think is a patent-pending idea. Halfway hiker house. Hiker halfway house.
It's all the same thing.
Imagine a social platform, possibly an app, that allows people in the long-distance community to connect with other individuals who are not quite ready to assimilate into normal life. Maybe the house has a drawer constantly stocked with condiments and a couple of Kula cloths hanging in the bathroom. What, like people reuse them? Is that what she means there? Like, come on in, grab a Kula cloth, wipe your vag, put it back?
I would imagine after it's washed, it's fine. They're antimicrobial, right?
No from me. Maybe everyone still tries to fit all their meals into a single titanium pot eaten with the same dirty spork and sleeps in an expensive UL quilt instead of bothering with sheets and blankets. The point is, some of us are not entirely interested in ditching our dirtbag habits and would prefer to share a living space with like-minded individuals, whether those are people in between hikes or people on a longer career trajectory who still like the spice of some hiker trash in their lives. As an example, I am going through the Salt Lake City seasonal housing motions once again, and no matter how specifically I word my outdoorsy leanings and low standard of living, the bulk of respondents are still clean-cut entrepreneurs peddling private studio apartments. Where are my fellow dirtbags at? I know you all exist, hence the need for a link-up of Hikers Housing Edition. By the way, whatever happened to Hikerlink? I was thinking that actually at the start of this. Anyway, not what happened to it, but like that could, anyway. Yeah. Anyway, all this to say, I love the pod, love the community, and wish that both were even more present in my non-hiking life. Thanks for the insightful interviews, the creme de la crap poop stories, the hottest of takes, and Zach, have you thought about hiking the AT?
Ooh.
Live cheaply and love freely, Fancy Feast.
Fancy Feast, we love you as always.
Oh, I love Fancy Feast. I kind of did this after the AT. Not hosted a whole hiker house type of thing,
yeah.
But this is essentially what me and Ballflap did.
Sure.
When we got off the AT, he had gotten off the CDT. We had hiked together on the PCT, completely platonic. I was hooking up with his friend on the PCT. And so we were like, we don't want to start renting an expensive apartment in Denver. We don't have jobs yet. We don't have money saved up for a security deposit of that substantial size. And so we had gone on Denver roommates on Facebook and found someone who was subletting a bedroom in their apartment. And I sent her this crafted message that was basically like, hey, I've got a unique proposition for you. I just did this trail. My buddy also hikes these types of trails. We would love to rent this one bedroom. We have no furniture and we have a suitcase each of things. And that is all our belongings. So we won't be bringing a lot of stuff. And we basically just want to put a bed on each side of the room, like a dorm room. And we will share the dresser that's in there. And one of the beds was my car sleeping pad on just on a stand. And then the other was my bed that was in storage. And we lived like that for half a year.
Yeah. Dorm
room style. And she said yes. We each paid, I think, $400 a month in rent. Because we were splitting this $800 room. You couldn't bring people back. It wasn't like we were hosting anything ever. It was literally a dorm room.
Yeah.
And that's how I saved up money. Because we were living in our cars. We lived in our cars and parked side by side in parking lots until it started getting cold. And then we did this. And then I got a job somewhere in between the two of them. I think I was living out of my car when I started the job. And I saved up a security deposit. And then we eventually got an apartment. To call our own. But for a while that was literally our halfway house. And the funny thing was, after we got to meet her, she was like, yeah, I totally thought you guys were hooking up and just we're trying to hide it on the application. And it turns out you guys didn't lie. You are purely friends and don't even really hang out that much.
I'm surprised she was okay with adding an additional person to the space just in general.
Yeah. Surprised she said yes.
Yeah.
So shout out to her for saying yes.
Yeah.
But that's what we did. And I highly recommend, if anyone is trying to finagle something like this, find another hiker in your area and shoot your shot, because the worst thing that can happen is they say no. I definitely had a bunch of people leave me on red after proposing that.
Yeah.
But all I needed was one not to. So
it also sounds like the halfway house could just be working at a hostel. I know it's tough because
Ooh.
at the end of the hiking season, I don't think hostels are necessarily looking for people. But if you're willing to delay that, or I guess if you found like where the demand is for southbound on the AT, that could potentially work. But yeah, it seems like that's a perfect fit for that. Hikerlink just became. It's tough to have kids and then add business ventures into an already very busy life. So it fell by the wayside because I lacked the bandwidth.
You didn't know you were having twins at that time.
We started it just before we had Leo, actually.
Oh.
And in hindsight, having one kid, you can still kind of be productive in an entrepreneurial sense. 3, that just disappears entirely. But yeah, that's what happened to it.
Well,
might bring it back.
Yeah, bring it back.
Kids are getting easier every month or so. So I can feel like my horizons are expanding in terms of having additional time. But nothing on the immediate horizon.
You can incorporate like an Airbnb type thing.
The ideas are endless. It's essentially Facebook for through hiking specifically. I was actually very pleased with the traction in the early days, but it was a time suck.
Oh.
Thank you, Fancy Feast. That was an excellent email. 5-star review. This is from Gadget Inspector. Title: 5-star. 5-star. Chance definitely left the fridge open. 5-star. I don't even know what that's in reference to.
I don't either, but that does remind me I have a Red Bull in the freezer. So once this is done, I have to go get that out. Thank you.
It was you time traveling to let you know.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, like Interstellar.
Yeah, I don't know what that refers to, but I probably did.
Yeah.
Maybe they're just trying to give me anxiety.
Is it working?
And like make me think that at home I left the fridge open. No, because Garrett's at home. He would close it.
There you go. Big shout out to LMNT, our title sponsor for today. They're awesome. You've heard us talk about them quite a bit. We've got the sparkling waters on display here for you today. I drink one of these things every single day, hiking or not, as someone who is an active sweater. A person who sweats. I very much appreciate the sodium and rest of the electrolytes. They taste awesome, and they're especially amazing while backpacking. So if you've got backpacking trips upcoming in 2025, highly encourage you to stock up yourself. You can go to drinklmnt.com/trek to get a free sample pack with our URL. Anything you want to add there?
I am obsessed with them. I put them in all my waters, and they last a long time if you're not on trail, because you don't necessarily need one packet per water bottle. Here's the thing, you have the power, right? Like you can choose how much powder to put into your water, and that's just fun. So
you have the powder power.
You have the powder power, and I just feel better when I take them. I notice I just feel more.
Yeah, and especially good for hangover prevention.
Yes. I'm in dry January right now, so that's not super relevant, but hydration always is.
You've had 0 alcohols in January?
No, my January is semi-dry, which means that I can drink for Bills playoff games. And
it's a moist January.
Semi-dry. And I have not drank for either of the Bills games this month, but I did have like 1 or 2 drinks on my company like sales retreat thing.
So you passed the drink tokens to a different.
Yeah, I took from 2 separate days, and I used those on those 2 days.
Yeah.
The rest of it's dry.
If my team were in the playoffs, which will probably never happen again, there's no way I'm not drinking.
Yeah, well, it was kind of an easy one because this last game was at 11 a.m. So I was like, I don't need to
That's the best drinking hour of the day.
Drink by myself before noon.
Yeah.
That starts to become
what
some might
you said
consider
that
a
was
problem.
like 5 minutes after you woke up.
Yeah, so some might consider that a problem.
Yeah.
Not me, but some.
Yeah.
But the next game is at 6 p.m. So.
Predictions.
No, it's at 4 p.m. We're going to win. What do you mean? I'm not going to bet against myself.
Okay. Good. You should be confident.
Cool. So that's that.
Super big thank you to our Chuck Norris Award winners on Patreon. That is Alex and Misty with Navigators Crafting, Alex Kindle, Andrew, Austin McDaniel, Brad and Blair from 13 Adventures, Brent Stenberg, Brian Alsop,
Fables,
Christopher Marshburn, Coach from Marion Outdoors, Derek Cook, Eric Casper.
The Friendly Ghost.
I don't know why I froze there. Eric Hoffman, Jillian Daniels, Greg Knight,
It's the Gregs. We're in the Greg
we got
portion
the
of the
Gregs.
show.
Yeah. Greg Martin, Greg McDaniel.
Neighbor honored his name.
We have 3 Gregs.
Yes, we had a whole shout out for them last time.
I'm just so impressed by the Gregs of the world. Love you guys. Griffin Haywood, you bring me a beer. Haley Buckingham.
Palace.
Liz Seeger, Mud Tom, Patrick Ciancialo, Rebecca Brave, Sawyer Products, Spam, Timothy Hahn,
Solo.
and Tracy Trigger. Shout out to our guy Paulie at Old Man Murph's Coffee. Go to ommcr.com and get yourself some delicious beans. You can follow us on social. Are we still on TikTok?
You know what's funny is today I opened TikTok and it's like everything you swipe through is people like really sad, being like, I can't believe I'm losing TikTok. My whole business is based on this, like my livelihood. It's been a great run, and it's very depressing today on TikTok. Like the mood has changed.
Sure.
There's a new app called, I don't know if the app is new, but everyone's been talking about Red Note, which I guess is what people are going to.
Is it just TikTok in a different name?
I looked it up on the App Store. The logo and all the text is just Chinese characters. Like it's not American or English or anything like that. And so the running joke on TikTok right now is that they banned TikTok and everyone goes to a specifically Chinese app from it. So I really do. At this point, I don't know what's going to happen, but it's kind of fun to watch.
What a weird reaction from people to want to... Anyways.
Did you see the TikTok I sent to the group this morning?
Yeah.
That one was funny.
It was funny.
So that's kind of the mood overall of TikTok that I've noticed today.
Yeah. I feel like there's so many of these apps that... I mean, I understand if you establish a following, it's a different thing. But from the consumer standpoint, Instagram, YouTube is all doing the crack content.
I really want to know what's next because I feel like I didn't learn TikTok fast enough, soon enough. And this was my fault because on the AT, they messaged me and asked if I wanted to collab and make a TikTok and post videos on my hike. And that was when it was like Bite Dance. And I was like, I'm not going to sing. Don't sing. What am I going to do? Sing lyrics on a mountain? That's stupid. And now TikTok is what it is. And I'm like, damn, imagine I had done it.
Could have been an OG.
Yeah, I'd be the boss. But so I'm like, okay, what's next? Maybe I can learn it quick and apply myself and put my little hiking videos there. And, I don't know. What's the end goal?
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
But I didn't download
It's funny
Red Note.
because by the time this comes out, we will have a lot more information.
Yeah.
So we're predicting from the past.
A lot of this.
How will the Supreme Court rule?
I don't know. A lot of this episode has been predictions from me specifically. Why don't you predict that?
I predict this one will go poorly for you. So you can
for
follow
me?
Yeah.
I don't have any leg in the game.
No, I'm talking about you telling people to not use satellite communicators.
Oh, I didn't tell them not. I specifically did not tell them not to. I would like to make that very clear. I am pro satellite communicators. I just sometimes don't. And that's a me choice, not a you choice. Yeah. You guys be safe.
Good. You can follow us at Backpacker Radio on TikTok for the time being and Instagram at BackpackerPod on X, Facebook.com/Backpacker Radio. You can follow Chauncey.
You can find me on Instagram at Juliana_Chauncey. You can watch my silly hiking videos on YouTube at Juliana Chauncey. And you can get my book, Hiking from Home, a long-distance hiking guide for family and friends, on Amazon. It turns 5 next month. Yay.
Nice. Appalachian Trials and Pacific Crest Trials are my books. Subscribe and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on YouTube.
Hi, Internet.
What's up, YouTube? And that's it. Thank you so much for listening, and happy hiking.
Bye.